Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live and we are on time. I think on a day like this, we're already going through enough pain in the pre-market. Probably would be appropriate for me to not be a couple minutes late. We are here. I think this is going to be one of those days. It's going to be one of those days where honestly, we all hold each other's hands and get through the morning. Now, maybe there's going to be a reversal at 9:30, and hopefully that reversal would essentially change some of the pre-market blood we're seeing, but we are seeing some blood, and that blood is very aggressive. I don't think that blood has the best reason for why it has started to manifest itself right here. S&P 500 down 1.3%, 1.4% in the pre-markets. That's a hell of a move. That's a massive move on the S&P, especially because it now takes us below 740 and takes us below that 739 level that we hit when Kevin Warsh was speaking last Wednesday. Kind of feels a little fake in regards to how aggressive that is in the pre-market. Like 1.5% is not a small amount of capital being wiped out of the equity markets. And you would think for that to happen in the pre-markets that it just feels like a little bit too much. Nonetheless, there is a reason for it. And the reason has to do with the momentum drawdown that we will be talking about. It's not just from the rebalance that we talked about last night. It could be, but there's a, I guess, more explicit reason that if you were sleeping last night, like most people were, you probably missed and you had to wake up in the morning and find out, which I woke up in the morning. I did not see this happen, even though I slept at like 12 a.m. last night. Around 2:30 Eastern is when this started to unfold. And that's when things got ugly. Micron is down 9%. SanDisk is down 10%. SpaceX fell below 150. It was at 147 about 20 minutes ago. Now it's at 150, down about 2.5%. Obviously, this one has had a very, very ugly drawdown and round trip from the IPO. $1 trillion up, $1 trillion down. Bitcoin is down 2.7%. Nabesis down 8%. Meta's down another 1%. Nvidia is $2 away from going below 200 again. I mean, it's just really, really ugly prints in the semiconductor space. Marvell, that's down 9%. Broadcom, that's down 4%. Astera Labs, they just got into the NASDAQ 100 yesterday. That is down 8%. Rocket Lab is not slowing down in terms of its momentum to the downside. That's down 5%. ARM is down 7%. It's ugly. It is definitely ugly. CoreWeave, it looks like, I mean, look, if the pain continues, I think there might be a chance to buy CoreWeave again under 100. We got to see how this market opens. And I'm not fully convinced that this red is going to last throughout the entire day, because this is exactly what happened in March when we talked about the reason for why we're red, and we reversed pretty quickly. So I'm not fully convinced that this is a doomsday, but we'll talk about why it is red. But CoreWeave right there was almost at 125 a couple days ago. Now 103 as that one is down. Obviously, your software names are having a little bit of a better move in the pre-market. And the only reason for that, I don't think it's because, semis are down, so softwares are rallying. I think it's because they're getting a bit of a sympathy bounce. I mean, Palantir took such an ugly dip yesterday, down about 7%. It's up 48 cents in the pre-market. I mean, that's the least it could do, right? Go up a little bit after that nasty dip yesterday. Microsoft went below 370. Now it's at 372. ServiceNow is up a little bit. So some of your software names are giving you a little hint of like sympathy bounce from yesterday. If we actually see the Microns of the world stay down 10% and the Palantirs of the world go up 7%, it would be the first time in 2026 we've seen a legit software to semis rotation or semis to software rotation. Not sure if that's going to happen, but I think the software bounce that we're seeing is very minimal. And quite frankly, if the S&P 500 continues to fall, I don't know if software can, hold its momentum. IGV is up 17 cents in the pre-market. So let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about what happened, why this took place, and if this is going to continue being as red as it is throughout the rest of the day. Group therapy, correct. Today might be a day that is a bit more group therapy. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Chad, Erwin, Danny, Rick, Travis, Ray, Connie, thank you all for being here. Got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. This is the last market open before Friday. I will be on a flight tomorrow. Unfortunately, I will not be covering Micron's earnings, so there will be no market close or market open tomorrow, but we'll be back Friday for the market open. We'll be missing Thursday as well. And yeah, we will keep going from there and see how this market ultimately plays out for the rest of these coming weeks. Desi, what's up? Mark, good morning. Shub, Mike, Ethereal, Krishna, June. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Johnny, Bluebird, Channing. All right, let's get into it. First of all, before we get into the actual numbers for why we were red last night, real quick. See, this is like really good news and it's big news and it should be celebrated, but it's like in the midst of all this red, it's hard to be like super, super excited about it because everything's red. But it happened. Palantir and Zeta. It happened. A lot of people, shout out to Wealthmatica Nick. He's like the OG Zeta bull. He's been theorizing about this for a long time, that Palantir and Zeta would have a partnership. And today they announced the partnership. And by the way, in the partnership, it's like a legit partnership. Alex Karp gave a quote in the partnership. Alex Karp does not give a quote on every single Palantir partnership. Many times they have someone else at the company do it. The fact that Karp actually put his name there and gave a quote on this, I thought was really interesting. Palantir and Zeta are using ontology to create a next generation marketing environment, giving Zeta all the advantages of AI while protecting against many of the known dangers, said co-founder and CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp. Bringing together containerized architecture and AI in the context of marketing will transform this industry. David Steinberg says Palantir has built the infrastructure the world's most sophisticated institutions run on, and Zeta has built the intelligence infrastructure that powers how enterprises acquire, grow, and retain customers. Together, we are bringing AI-powered marketing to those same organizations on a platform they already trust. So this was a really, really cool partnership to see. I haven't done that much digging into it because I saw it as soon as I woke up. But at its core, a lot of people in the Zeta community in particular have theorized that the way Zeta is bringing value creation to their enterprise customers, 6 to 7x ROI on every dollar that's spent, probably, along with Athena, which is their new AI offering, makes sense to embed within Foundry and AIP. And based on the press release, it looks like that's going to be happening. Zeta's data cloud will be re-architected on Palantir Foundry. The goal is to connect operational intelligence, customer intelligence, and real-time marketing execution. And then Zeta says the partnership could drive more than $100 million in annual revenue in the coming years. I know a lot of you guys are asking for Davis's perspective on this. Davis actually called me yesterday. He's in California. He's on some vacation because for those that don't know his work schedule, he only works Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So he's basically unemployed Monday through Thursday. So he called me with a place that barely had any service yesterday. And he was like, dude, he's like near some waterfall or something. I was like, dude, I just got service, but I saw Palantir. What happened today? I was like, yeah, bro, it was an ugly day. So I haven't gotten his update. I don't even know if he has service to know that Palantir and Zeta partnered, but I'm sure when he sees that, he's going to be pretty happy. So yeah, I mean, look, it's a cool partnership. I got to dive deeper into it. It's nice to see this. Palantir also had an Army partnership last night, which we talked about. It's just the entire market being red, takes away a little bit of the focus because a lot of people are wondering why we red. But ultimately, I think it's a really good partnership for both companies. A lot of people theorized it would happen. And it makes sense. Like, it just makes sense based on the emphasis both companies have on value creation. Zeta is up pre-market on this. Palantir is not up because obviously this helps Zeta more than it helps Palantir from a stock perspective in terms of the perception of how the company is growing. Zeta right there up 8.6%. If Zeta can actually hold that percentage move into the market open, if we get a bloodbath, it would be quite exciting. But at 9:30, we're going to see how the market actually interprets it. So that's what we had with Zeta and Palantir. Now, why are the markets fully red? The reason for this is because of South Korea. It is not because of the South Koreans per se, but it is because of particular legislation, ideas, and leverage that is in the South Korean markets, which caused the sell-off that we are seeing in the pre-markets in the United States. So KOSPI, South Korea's index, fell 9.9%. Worst day since March. Worst day since March. The last time this happened was March 4th in terms of how ugly of a day that we're seeing right here. Why did this happen? Well, there's a couple reasons. Korean lawmakers are reportedly discussing taxes on unrealized stock gains, which could also be causing people to sell. Do I actually think the South Korean legislators are going to be having legislation that causes unrealized stock gains? Not really, but from some of the numbers I read, South Koreans have unrealized gains of like $80 to $100 billion, and a South Korean market has never seen that type of extreme level of wealth creation, even if it's on paper within less than a year. And so you're going to have the legislative bodies, just like you have the AOCs and Bernies of the world in the United States, start to propose different ideas. And those ideas, if they proliferate enough and if they get enough traction, obviously will create some downside momentum. Now, that's not the only reason I think we're seeing the momentum unwind, but that was one of the core reasons that was quoted today in the South Korean news for why KOSPI fell. Number two, SpaceX. We've been talking about it all year that South Korea in particular loves these types of stocks. South Korea was a #1 net buyer for the past 5 years of none other than Tesla. You've got a lot of people in South Korea that like to take elevated levels of risk. That's why margin continues to be one of the biggest things. We talked about stories of how South Koreans that are 50 years old are taking loans against their life policy and buying stocks and opening brokerage accounts. Levered ETFs have hit $16 billion last week in terms of the level of AUM that are in those levered ETFs. And the gambling culture in South Korea is something that's intrinsic to the country's DNA. SpaceX is one of those stocks that we don't know the data yet on how many South Koreans bought it, but I would argue it's probably already a top 10 stock in the country with a lot of excitement around how the IPO went. And obviously they went up a lot, so people probably bought it as it went up a lot. They probably got leverage on it. And then it did a complete unwind. So I think you have the momentum drawdown of SpaceX going from 230 back to 150, potentially also affecting the South Korean markets, because if Tesla was a top 5 stock in South Korea, if SpaceX got even up there in the top 10, top 15, you probably had a lot of leverage already there that had to come down either through an unwind or through a margin call. And that volatility could also create some more pain. On top of that, SK Hynix and Samsung took their biggest dips that they took all year. And as a result of that, I think you're also seeing the momentum unwind in the context of Micron and SanDisk as more and more of the memory names in South Korea, those are what it looked like today in South Korea, ended up going red. The other major reason I think we're getting a bit of a sell-off right here is because we do have Micron earnings tomorrow, and there might just be some profit taking going into Micron earnings because, I mean, the stock has run a lot. And because the stock has run a lot, you might have some people just saying, hey, it's time to take a little bit of a profit right here as it is, hitting 1240 last night in the after hours. And so from that perspective, along with, SK Hynix and Samsung falling as much as they had, the entire memory trade is a little bit in question right now, at least in the context of how aggressive it has been. Having said all of that, the other reason it's down is because SK Hynix was supposed to have an ADR listing into the United States. That didn't happen. So you don't have a lot of money coming from like US investors on Robinhood buying SK Hynix, which was supposed to happen by now. And on top of that, the Korean market was supposed to gain inclusion into the MSCI Developed Markets Index. And that hasn't happened yet either. That was supposed to happen last week. It has failed to happen. I don't know if it's a logistical reason for why it failed, or if the index is just like, hey, you guys are levered up and we kind of don't want you in the developed markets index because, yeah, we like memory, but we could also think that it's getting a little too toppy right now, and that could be bad for the index. And so you have a lot of these cascading reasons that just started compounding on each other. AMD right there down 7% pre-market as well. Wow. That's at 510. Robinhood lost 100 pre-market. And that is why I think we're seeing the type of pain that we're seeing. Now, having said that, I don't know if this is the time to get bearish on memory or on high beta. The reason I'm saying this is because the last time Kospi had this big of a decline, it was bought up within a few weeks. And for this to be the absolute top of it would mean that the memory trade itself is topping. I mean, at this point, they're so interconnected. Micron cannot go up without Samsung and SK Hynix participating. SanDisk cannot go to 5,000 without Micron participating. Like, all of these things are interconnected in so many different ways. And so if the South Korean markets were to top, which, by the way, make no mistake out of it, if the South Korean markets top, memory tops, because the South Korean markets are 50% memory. There is nothing really guiding the South Korean markets to get to these astronomical levels. I mean, their version of the S&P 500 is basically up 95%. Imagine if the S&P was up 95% year to date. Like, it would be massive, right? But the reason that's happening is because of two companies that have immense pricing power because of the supply-demand imbalance when it comes to offering memory for these chips. So if South Korea tops, memory has topped. And I don't believe memory is necessarily topped. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that, and Micron is going to have a blow off the top earnings, and it's going to get a bit ugly, and maybe that is the dip to buy. Or maybe Micron has such good earnings that the market recovers and Micron goes up to 1,400, and then, Samsung and SK Hynix end up recovering as well. So let's do a poll of that in the chat. I am really a little skeptical that this red is going to be as red as it is today for a long time. And if it is, then, it begs the question, is that going to give a fantastic opportunity on a lot of these names that potentially might go down another 10, 15% from here, which would create a good chance? Or, does this get eaten up as soon as the markets open? We do have the quarterly rebalance we talked about yesterday. JP Morgan quant strategists are estimating about $165 billion of capital is going to be rotating from equities into bonds. You have the Japanese selling, you have the Norges Bank selling. I mean, you just have a bunch of different entities, pension funds, mutual funds selling hundreds of billions of dollars of assets. And so that could also be creating some level of rebalancing wave that compounds with what's happening in South Korea, and that gets you the red that we're seeing right now. But every time we've had this type of red,
as Connie says right here, it's been fake. Every single time. And forget the March red, which was like really aggressive, right? 9% down on the index. I think we've had probably 5 to 7 different 2 or 3 day moments over the course of the past, call it 2.5 months, ever since we officially signed the ceasefire, where we get a 3 to 4% drawdown, 10, 15, 20% on individual names, and they get bought up. And so I think everyone's a little worried of like, when is going to be that moment where it doesn't get bought up, where like buying the dip doesn't work as easily. Or is this just, once again, the opportunity that we should be taking to be a lot more excited on having a different dip to buy? So I don't know. We're going to see. We are going to see. Why is Oracle down? Oracle, are we dumping Oracle? Oh my goodness, lost 175. What did Larry Ellison do? Oracle adds sales agents to $20 billion equity distribution deal. The hell does that mean? Oracle adds sales agents to equity distribution deal? Are they Oracle plans? Oracle releases SEC filing regarding the February secondary share sale announcement of up to $20 billion. Oracle adds sales in for previously announced $20 billion common stock. What does that mean? You're adding a sales agent? Okay, so they're doing $20 billion equity. We already knew they were selling. They already announced $40 billion of dilution back on earnings. What does sales agents mean? Adding sales agents for previously announced $20 billion common stock offering. I have no idea what that means. Are they adding agents to help them dilute the stock? Are the agents going to be diluting the stock now? That's what's happening? They just added the word agent to make it sound like it was AI. Dude, like, am I crazy? What does that mean? Oracle adds sales agents to $20 billion equity distribution deal. I have no idea what that means, but if that means that agents will be diluting their shares automatically, then I guess that is not softening the blow right there. But there you go. Oracle down 3.7%. Again, a lot of announcements today I think might go under the radar, even if they're good announcements, if they end up getting caught up in the drawdown that we're seeing right here. S&P 500 down about 1.38%. Agentic AI dilution. Exactly. Seems like that's what's happening here. Anyway, what do people think? Do we think this is fake red or do we think this is real red? Because I don't know. I'm not buying it, bro. It feels kind of fake. It feels kind of like there is a large argument to be made that there's a momentum drawdown happening right now with SpaceX and with the memory names. But last time we saw this, like, it was bought up pretty quickly as the broader thesis around memory, around AI has not really changed. There's not really the smoking gun I think you can point to be like, yep, this is why the Neo clouds are going to fail, or this is why the Max 7 are done. Now, NVIDIA pushing below 200 is not exciting to see, but nonetheless, if Marvell and Broadcom are falling the way they're falling, obviously that could also be happening as well. Yeah, Koru, which is triple leveraged South Korea, is down 33% right there. This thing, how many AUM does this have? KORU. This is triple leveraged South Korea. AUM on this thing, as it's down 33% pre-market, $2.5 billion. The fact that a triple leveraged Korean bull ETF can generate $2.5 billion of AUM just shows how much risk appetite is out there, which is probably a reason for the bears to be able to make the case that, yeah, this is some real red because we need a momentum unwind. It doesn't mean that we have to have a bear market, but we definitely need some leverage to get out of the system, which, today in the pre-market, at least it seems like that's happening. But the question is, is that going to last for the long term, or if this is going to continue in the way that it's happening? So that's what we got. And obviously that's creating a lot more pain. SanDisk down 10%. AMD was pushing 570 yesterday. That is all the way back down to 508, down 7.75. Again, every time this has happened, within a day or two, these dips were bought. Today is going to be another interesting day to see if those dips continue to be bought or if it continues to result in pain. Now, the names that are red or green in the pre-market, let's take a look at them. IGV, software index, that's a little green. Zeta with that Palantir partnership we just talked about, that's a little green. Palantir, little green back above 120. Netflix, which I kind of think Netflix, there's two things on Netflix. I think they're starting to trade with the software names, because a lot of people have been asking, well, why is Netflix falling so aggressively? And when you look at the chart, after the earnings, there hasn't been a substantial announcement for them to really keep going down after they fell 15% on earnings. They just like taking a small step down every other week after they consolidate for a couple of days, and they take another 2% down, consolidate, take another 3% down. It looks very similar to the software companies, to be honest, because the software companies didn't just fall all at once. They like took a fall, consolidated, took a fall, consolidated, and then, I mean, hopefully yesterday was the bottom, but who knows? If it was the bottom for software, I think it theoretically could be the bottom for Netflix, because it seems like it's trading like a SaaS company right now. Now, we'll see if there's any meaningful divergence, but from that perspective, it does feel like it is technically bottoming. And then, you know, Netflix is still a very high quality company. If you're getting it at the lowest valuation you've been able to get it at over the past 5 years, maybe that is a really decent buy. It's just a question of, you know, is software a really decent buy? I think Palantir at 119 is a decent buy. I bought more Palantir yesterday at 119.50, but today we're going to have to see, does that level hold? It was at 117 in the pre-market, so it's getting a little bit of a bounce right now. But if the entire market ends up staying bloody red, like if the Qs go from down 3%, which is crazy in the pre-market, to down 5%, you know, can Palantir withstand that? Can Microsoft withstand that when you have that much selling pressure on the indices? And I don't think, you know, that can fully be said. It's similar to what's been happening with Zillow. Yeah, Zillow, again, it's not a traditional software company, but 100%. A lot of these names that are software adjacent. I mean, Reddit is not really a SaaS company, but Reddit has been treated as a SaaS company, and, you know, their chart looks very similar to a lot of the other charts in IGV. So I think that's also happening with Netflix and Zillow. It's just, you know, Netflix in particular has taken a really, really nasty hit ever since earnings, but so have a lot of the other software names. So the question is going to be, are these names going to be strong enough to maintain their green in the midst of the red that we see today? If we actually, I mean, Adobe's up pre-market. Like, when's the last time the S&P is down at 1.5%, the Qs are down 3%, but Adobe ends up catching a bid? So that's also why I think the red is kind of fake, because it's like, it feels more algorithmic, and then the algos are just saying, okay, well, let's buy the things that went down a lot yesterday that are not correlated with any of the reason for why we're red today, which is the South Korean memory trade, which is affecting all the AI stocks, because inevitably it affects the AI stocks in some way. And you're left with software. So either software stays green, or, you know, it ends up joining the party being red when the market opens. And in about 25 minutes, we're going to find out to see what happens. Amazon also took a little bit of a hit yesterday, 232 right here in the pre-market. Google took a hit. So the Google news, again, we talked about it yesterday. There's a couple of big level researchers that left over the past few weeks. That might be affecting the stock. I don't know if they're doing the equity share issuances of 85 billion, but that could be affecting the stock. These Chinese models that are coming out that are cheaper than a Gemini, Anthropic, and OpenAI, and almost as effective, I think are also affecting some of these AI model stocks. And so you put all that together on top of the fact that sentiment right now is not the best in the Mag 7, and this is what you get. I'd be very curious to see, does Google actually lose 330 in a meaningful way? In the pre-market, it hit 337, which was the price it was at before earnings in Q1. So if it were to stay, or even, you know, get, you know, meaningfully into those levels, then, I mean, is Meta going to the low 500s at that point? 562 right here. Is Amazon going back to the 220s? Like, it really starts bringing up the question of how many of these names are going to start to get to levels that they haven't seen before, and how aggressive do they need to go down before the market steps in and buys them up. Nebius right there, down about 9.7%, almost hit 300 yesterday, as that one takes a dip back down to 250. Nvidia, that's down about 2.6%. Keel down about 5.49%. Marvell 276. This is the lowest it's been in the pre-market. It was at 315 yesterday. That one's taken a dip. Pretty much everything. Intel was pushing 142 yesterday. That is now at 128, down 8%. So obviously that momentum up is unfortunately that momentum down. I mean, even Hoodie, bro, even freaking Hoodie was pushing 112 yesterday. Now it's at 99. Like, it's just so rooted in the same momentum that a lot of the AI semiconductor names are rooted in. And so, you know, it's nice that Hood's not at 70 anymore, but it's also like, was it able to meaningfully hold that $100 level? And I think if Micron comes back and the semi names come back, Hood will just jump right back up. But right now it's in that algo, which is not a bad algo to be in, because when it goes up, it really goes up. But when it goes down, obviously it also takes a, you know, ugly dip as well. Why do you have a red hoodie on? It's not red technically. This is what is this color? What did it's the Palantir hoodie. What did Ileana called it? It's maroon. It's maroon. It's not red. It's maroon. So I know it's not Sunday morning, and even though I have 5 fingers, that is why I'm wearing maroon. Get it? Maroon 5, Sunday morning. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic that we've got to talk about. So, that sounded better in my head. It sounded so much better. It always sounds better in my head than it when I say it. Like, they always sound better in my head. Quantum aura. So, this is what we've got. Yes, let's move on. Okay, let's move on. Let's forget that happened. This is what Trump tweeted yesterday. So, what did Trump do yesterday? He had a meeting with all of the quantum CEOs as he's investing a lot more money into the quantum infrastructure. The quantum stocks have not done that well, or they've not they've done well ever since the announcement came out a couple weeks ago, but they haven't like pumped the way that you would think they would pump yesterday, even though IBM was there. Google CFO was there. So you got the United States helping out Google, IBM, and then you have Rigetti, Inflection, all those names. I don't know how serious of a deal this is going to be for the future of quantum. I do think, though, that if the government is signing executive orders and putting real serious money behind the quantum names, it's not something to ignore. It might not be something to go full port on right now, but it is something to, I think, pay attention to as the Chinese are developing a lot more of their quantum systems. And obviously, if the United States wants to be more competitive in quantum, then they're going to try to compete as well, and they're going to put a lot more money behind it. So, I mean, it's not the craziest update in the world in terms of what we're going to see, what happens with the quantum names, but you do have Trump investing in them, and that is what we have going on right now. Now, in terms of Iran, the updates on Iran are actually really good. Trump talked about it last night in the press conference. You saw him saying that, we are working well with the Iranians. We are getting ready to really establish a deal. The U.S. is now letting them sell oil into the United States and sell oil in USD. So there's just a lot of things that seem to be going well with Iran. The market doesn't necessarily care about it. Oil, 73. I mean, the fact that oil once again continues to fall every day and the market sells off is a little annoying, because this is what the catalyst what everyone was waiting for. But the market found some other reason to be, upset about a different macro concern. But it looks like the Iran issues for now are not as bad, and hopefully that is what continues over the coming weeks.
A couple of the people were doing very well with respect to the Hormuz Strait. We took in more oil yesterday than has ever gone through the strait. You probably see that we have an oil gusher. The strait is totally open, that, and we're negotiating. We'll see how that all goes. But we have two things: we have an open strait, and we have a country that will never have a nuclear weapon. Will never, ever have a nuclear weapon. So now I'd like to invite Michael Kratsios, Director of the Office.
All right. So the Iran updates, it doesn't look like we're going to be talking about them that intensely anymore, but we've got new issues to be concerned about when it comes to different reasons the market's going down. And, some of those new reasons are starting to pop up more aggressively. AMD right there, down about 7.6%. Micron, 10% down. That's a full 100. It's about, round about 124 billion of market cap being wiped out in the pre-market on Micron. Micron was very close to overtaking Meta's market cap yesterday. And so, if it stays down 10%, then it might not be able to easily do that. But you are seeing that drawdown right there. SanDisk, that's down 10%. SMCI, which had a great partnership last night, SMCI with NVIDIA, that was up 15%. That's also down 6% right here. So pretty much everything, no matter how good the news was. Nokia, that's down 6%. T1 Energy, I know this is getting a lot more excitement. It's just really hard if we're not in a raging bull market for some of these names to continue their green momentum independent of the AI trade. I mean, they kind of need AI to continue going higher. T1 Energy is seen as a solar play inside of AI for data centers. And so if you've got doubts around data centers, you've got doubts around that. Lennar, that's down a little bit. Open Door, that's down. Marathon's down. Riot's down. IWM, small caps finally taking a hit. And then IREN is down 5% as well. Does the stock draft update after hours? It does not. So when the market opens, we'll have an update on the stock draft and see kind of how things are going from there. The other big reason that I think we could be taking a dip right here is, and we talked about it yesterday, but Bank of America is telling their clients we're going to get 3 rate hikes this year. I think that's kind of crazy, but the only argument you can make for why that's not crazy. So why is it crazy? Because if oil's coming down, inflation should be coming down, we shouldn't get a rate hike. The argument that I heard last night to get some counter perspectives was that, well, oil might be coming down, but there's another reason inflation is spiking in the country, which could create the necessity for a hike, even if it's not 3 hikes, and that is memory. The price of memory going up as memory is intertwined in all different types of consumer products that we use would force companies to raise prices on those products. We literally have evidence of this because Apple said last week they're going to be raising their prices because of the memory shortage. And that could be causing structural inflation around consumer electronics. Now, is that enough to have a rate hike? I'm a little skeptical of that. I feel like oil is much more of a reason, a valid reason to have a rate hike. But, laptops, computers, phones, electronic devices across the entire country, if we do have a general increase of that of like 10 to 15%, memory prices are up 50 to 70%, then that could be a bit aggressive. Now, Goldman Sachs came out, they put out some research to respond to this exact claim, and here is what they said. Memory prices rose sharply in 2025 Q4 and 2026 Q1, but have stalled since. As a result, we expect memory prices to stabilize over the coming months. Now, there is a bit of a double bind here. If memory prices stable over the coming months, game consoles, etc., then maybe the memory pricing power that is being priced in to the Microns and SanDisks of the world doesn't dissipate, but it doesn't get as aggressive as it's been. If it doesn't stall the price increases around DRAM, HBM, etc., then maybe inflation gets worse. So there's like 2 sides of the coin right here. If memory prices keep going up, that could be structural inflation, even if it's not as aggressive as oil inflation or energy inflation. But if it stalls, then the pricing power remains, aka the 85% gross margins that Micron loves will continue to be strong, but they might not get that much stronger. And then if there's any whiff of the market feeling, hey, the trade is a little long in the tooth, that combined with the lack of pricing power in perpetuity, which these companies will not have pricing power in perpetuity. There's a lot of solutions out there that are trying to combat the amount of the memory tax that companies have to pay. That could also create some headwinds for the broader memory trade in and of itself. On top of that, there was one analyst's report that I read last night that went super bearish on the Micron Anthropic deal and was like, this is their perspective, not my perspective, but I think it's valid to look at both sides. They were like, this is an absolute pump and dump. And the reason this is a pump and dump is because why a couple days before earnings is Micron announcing that they've locked in a deal with Anthropic? It's your vendor locking in a deal with their customer to supply more of what the customer is paying for, and then you're investing in that customer. It's the same type of circular funding argument that we've heard all the time, but this time it's a little bit more egregious because it's not NVIDIA or an AMD doing it, which actually has a moat in terms of their intellectual property around the products they build. It is a memory maker that is trying to make sure they lock in you as a customer to buy more of their stuff, which just feels like they need to, try to pump up and juice up these contracts to be able to get investors to be more excited about something that just does not have the pricing power to last in perpetuity the way that an NVIDIA or an AMD does. Now, the opposite perspective on that is that this is really strategic for Micron. This is very strategic for Anthropic if they're going to be building their own custom silicon, and their ability to partner with Micron just means they're going to be getting more of their compute and memory secured, so they don't have to worry about jumping through hoops, because obviously these supply chains are very long and intense to be able to enable. But there is a bearish perspective, which is just like Micron's doing this before earnings to try to juice up what the perception is of their longevity. Because again, when it comes to these memory names, it's all about longevity. How long will they be able to put up the type of growth that they're putting up? And if they can't for a long time, then, or if they are perceived as not being able to do it for longer than a couple of years, at what point does the house of cards end up falling, if it is a house of cards? So yeah, those are all the perspectives right here in the context of the AI race, and it's leading to the red that we're seeing right now. Amit, is it software time? I am going to be very curious at 9:30 in the next 10 minutes. Do we actually get a little bit of a rotation into software? ARM right there down 9%. Again, the software names, they're up a little bit pre-market. Zeta's already losing a lot of what it was up. It was up 10%. Now it's up 6%. I can't really see the NASDAQ and the S&P going down 3-4% and software catching a bid. Like, that would be unbelievable. And if it does happen, maybe software really is back. But If that doesn't happen, then I think they're probably going down in the dumps, and then everything's going to have to reverse at the same time. Nebius right there down 9.7%. AMC is down because they're diluting by $200 million. I don't know, why AMC is still so heavily covered and people are so excited about it. But again, it's one thing about if a company's growing and the stock's not moving and there's long-term thesis. It's another thing if management just continues to use shareholders like their piggy bank and dilute into oblivion. I mean, remember, AMC launched a coin. AMC has done so many different things over the past few years that have just felt so anti-shareholder. But yeah, they're diluting again. That's why the stock right here is down 23%. So that is what we got. This might end up being a therapy session, or this might end up being a nice little reversal right here. Fear and greed's at 33. I think today is going to be a buy the dip like usual. Now, it's easy to say that because the last few times this has happened, including 2 Thursdays ago, it ended up being an easy buy the dip. It's just, once again, no one wants to be the person that buys the dip when it's actually not a buy the dip. And, I think that's why people are skeptical of being excited to like really dumpster dive here. Having said that, a lot of these names, they're in the dumpster for a reason. And I don't know if the dumpster, like even Meta, Netflix, Microsoft, how low are we really taking Netflix to the 60s? It's $3 away, but does it actually lose 2024 lows? Does Meta go back to 450? Does Microsoft need to see the low 300? Like, does it really need to get that bad? Are these companies that demolished? There could be a bear thesis for Meta right now, and there's plenty of stuff that Zucks has done that has not been super exciting this year. You could say the same thing with Microsoft and Copilot. You could say the same thing with Netflix and how there might not be that much compelling content at the moment, but none of that is enough to justify the 70-80% drawdowns on these names, especially when we're not in a bear market, because it's not 2022. Like, this is not a bear market. Could it become a bear market for a little bit if we get a little bit of a midterm correction, summer stock drawdown? Maybe, but structurally, it's not a bear market. The reason I can say that confidently is because earnings growth is strong. If earnings growth goes away, 2022, again, earnings growth was not there. It was non-existent, and it was insanely bloated because of the overhang of COVID in 2021. So if that were to change, then it might not be as aggressively seen as something that needs to be bad. Now, when you see charts like this is the semiconductor index, SOX, rolling 14-month returns. As you can see in the dot-com bubble, it was up 234%. As of now, it's up 246%. So yes, the semis have taken out a lot of momentum. There's been a lot of money that's been made as the semis have rallied the way they have, and they are now peaking above where they were in the dot-com bubble. But once again, in the dot-com bubble, you did not have the semis multiple expansion with earnings expansion. I mean, Cisco we're trading at like 120 times forward earnings. The NVIDIA is trading at 20 times right now. So I know it's a broken record. We keep repeating this over and over again, but you can't say NVIDIA is a Cisco scenario when they're reaccelerating growth. And then you got your ARMs, your Marvells, all those companies that are growing. Now, I don't agree with ARM or Marvell's valuation. I think a lot of them are a little aggressive, but the point is they're growing. So they could come down 10, 15, 20%, but they're not coming down 50 to 90% like we saw in the docket. Like, I don't think that's happening. And if that's not happening, guess what? People are just going to buy the dip. So I think that might be the same thing that happens over the coming days if it actually gets that red. But I'm also curious, is it going to last in the market open? Especially if it's a Korea headline and people just say, all right, well, Korea's Korea, but we're going to go back to buying U.S. stocks. So we are going to see. Why not? NVIDIA dropped more than that the last bear market. Yeah, but I don't think we're in a bear market per se. Like, if we're in a structural bear market, yes, AMD, NVIDIA, all these companies, Google, Meta, they're going much lower. But we're not in a recession. Inflation, as long as energy keeps coming down, will structurally see its downside momentum. Labor market is fine. Labor market was so good the market crashed 2 Fridays ago because we had too many jobs. So it's one of those things where it's like, are we in a recession? Carnival Cruise, they had their earnings. Is that stock down? That stock's down 7. They beat on adjusted EBITDA, $1.58 billion versus $1.49 billion. Revenue, they missed very slightly, 6.6 versus 6.69 billion. Net income, 569 versus 463. They beat on that. And CEO said we have strong demand for 2027 and beyond. Not sure why the stock's taking an 8% hit, but looks like small miss on revenue, really good beat on adjusted EBITDA and net income. Guidance looks pretty strong, but on a day like today, obviously we could have a lot more red across the entire board. S&P, she's going even further down, 1.47. 1.47. That's a lot. 1.5 in the pre-market is a lot. And I really wonder, does that reverse given how aggressive it is, or does that keep going? Let's do a poll on that. See what people think. Does the market reverse, or do we keep going red? Keep going red. Could Ed Zitron be right? Look, there's a lot of bears out there with a lot of different bear cases. I mean, who knows, right? Time will tell. Maybe the guy is right. I think some of his arguments have some credibility. Other arguments I don't think are the best. But the point is, it's important to have different skeptics and perspectives that are out there. He's obviously getting a lot of attention because, if you're going to call BS on this entire revolution and you have an eloquent way of explaining that, you're going to get a lot of attention. But we're going to need to see a lot more of a catalyst that compounds across a variety of different angles to see if we actually sustain this trend. And time is going to tell. Here was Gary Cohen, former NEC director for Trump this morning. And here's what he had to say about some of the different stuff that's happening across the economy.
One of which we've talked about on this set before. We have this really unique phenomena going on where we're taking companies that historically have been IP heavy and asset light, meaning that they own something that generates enormous amount of cash flow, and they've used that cash flow to acquire other assets that generate cash flow, and they've used it to grow and create dividends for their shareholders. We now have those exact same companies that have worked for decades to become asset light, and they have chosen to become asset heavy.
Spending a lot
asset
of
heavy
CapEx.
To the point where they're issuing new stock,
Yep.
They're issuing new debt, and they're no longer cash flowing companies.
Yep.
We have to sit back and look at this and say, look, does this make sense to take companies that generate huge amounts of cash flow now that do not generate cash flow? And then we also have to evaluate how are we valuing those companies. We knew how to value them as growth cash flow generating companies. How do we value them as asset heavy companies that are now taking on debt, that have a higher debt service charge, that never had a debt service charge before, that will grow potentially in the future, but they're investing today for growth in the future? I think that may be a different valuation metric. So
they've gone from super high growth companies to not utilities, but something that maybe requires a different overall measure.
Well, we don't know if they become utilities. The question is, does this whole AI infrastructure and the LLMs themselves become more of a utility infrastructure play? We don't know because it's evolving out over time here. We also don't know what the pricing is going to look like. What are LLMs going to be worth? What are you going to pay for an LLM? Is it a commodity? Is someone going to come in with a newer LLM and undercut pricing? Are you going to buy the software separate from the compute? Are people going to compete for compute? We see that now. We see the Chinese coming in and undercutting the price of compute pretty dramatically. So all of these questions have to be asked. And what's really important behind the scenes is if you strip out AI and energy from the stock market this year, we have a down market. The two.
And look, I think that concern is very valid, which is why people are so scared. If you take out AI from this market, there is no market. So it's really AI or bust at this point. Fear and greed's at 33 in the pre-market. We'll see how bad it gets if we continue to have this drawdown. But once again, today is going to be emblematic of, do people come in and buy the dip like they have the last 5 times this happened over the course of 2 months? Or do we actually see some sustained drawdown? Are we going to have a Friday like we had 2 Fridays ago where it just kept going down? Or do people step in? We are going to find out in 10 seconds how the global capital equity markets want to play out for today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your asses up. Let's get into it. S&P opens down 1.5%, 1.57, 1.58. Okay, it opens pretty ugly right here. Amazon down, Meta down, Google down, Reddit down 2.4, Palantir, a little bit of a boost right there. Netflix, a little bit of a boost. Microsoft, a little bit of a boost. Zeta, big boost with the Palantir partnership. IGV trying to go green. So your software names trying to hold on in the midst of this. Robinhood gets a peak back above 100. Micron, 11% down. So Micron opens worse than what it was in the pre-market. $142, just lost $130 billion in market cap. Carnival Cruise down 9. AMC down 25. SMCI down 5. SPY's down 1.6. 1.6 on SPY. Keel is down 8%. Pretty much taking away the entire pump from yesterday. Marvell is down 9%. Broadcom down 3. Astera Labs down 10. Credo, this had a great day yesterday. That's giving it back. That's down 8. IONQ, Rigetti, those are down 2. Bloom Energy, 11% down. That is ugly. Qualcomm, 7% down. Elf is down 0.5%. SoFi losing 17 below 60 or below 17, 16.95, trying to get right back up to 17. UNH, that is green. Verizon, that is green. Is Coca-Cola green? Coca-Cola's green. So a lot of your value names showing some of their momentum in the face of a lot more of that red. Rocket Lab, that's down 2%. CoreWeave, that's down 7.8%. So not everything is red. Can't say it's a full bloodbath across the entire market, but DRAM, Seagate, Western Digital, DRAM down 15%. All of those names, I think, are the biggest culprits, as Seagate's down 8.3%. And WDC should also be down right here. Western Digital, that is down 7.9%. Where is SpaceX? We are, wow. Okay, folks. It opened at 150 IPO day. Anyone who is still holding their shares, if they bought on IPO day, is officially red. If you got it at 135, you are not red. If you bought it at all on IPO day and beyond, you are officially red. So in a week, this thing is round tripped $1 trillion. It is now below a $2 trillion market cap, 1.96 trillion. NVIDIA holding on for dear life to not lose 200. To not lose 200, $200.39. Robinhood above 100. I mean, that's pretty incredible, given it was down as bad as it was pre-market. So you had a bunch of dip buyers come in for Hood. Amazon trying to flip green right there. Meta also flipping green. Not a lot of green, but they are flipping green. Reddit still down 2%. Zillow up a little bit. Palantir 120.5, even if it's a sympathy bounce. It's nice to see that 119 is holding, at least to an extent. ServiceNow is also green. Let's look at the software names together. They're all green except Twilio, CrowdStrike, MongoDB, Oracle, and Snowflake. So not all of them are green. And the green that we are seeing, some of it's 2%, some of it's 1%. ServiceNow getting the most of it, up 4%. So maybe, I think it needs to take another couple hours to see if it's a real rotation. But so far, I would say that money's definitely going into software to start off the morning. SoFi back above 17. Back above 17. Nabesis, we are, look at that, 267. Okay. 255 dip was bought. People came in. S&P still down 1.5. S&P is not really showing that many signs of reversing, even though individual stocks are, like a Nebius or like a Robinhood. Tesla, wow. Tesla was 415 yesterday. Okay, so Tesla drawdown, pretty ugly, 390. Apple also loses 300. That's not the best. Where's AMD? AMD was at 510. AMD 517. Still down 6%. Still got a long way to go green today, but it's not. So many of these names are not losing their pre-market lows. I think that's the story so far. Penguin, this thing was 76 the other day, down 6% right here, 63.59. Corning still holding 193, but it's down 7%. It was pushing, it was well above 200 yesterday. So that one's losing 200. Ethereum, that's down 4%. Shopify barely up 12 cents. Accenture announced an accelerated share buyback. That's why Accenture is up. But obviously Accenture is still down a lot from the highs. UNH, that's about a flip red. Oscar just flip red. HIMS is at least holding 30. The shorts have started to cover. That short float is coming down, but HIMS is in the 30s. And then Nokia down about 6% on the day. Again, if you are all just joining, the memory collapse in South Korea is infiltrating the memory names in the United States, and a lot of the memory names control the momentum of the semi trade as of now. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of this red in the U.S. markets. Also, again, Micron's going to be 51% of the S&P 500's earnings growth for the entire year. So 50% of the entire S&P's growth on EPS is going to be Micron. So if Micron takes an 11% hit, yeah, the S&P is probably going to take a 1% hit. And that's why you're seeing it right there, 1.5%, as that continues to go down. Dow is still over 50K. So your Dow stocks, even though Home Depot did get a downgrade today, Home Depot's steady at 1.18%. Walmart, are we green? Walmart's up a little bit. Let's look at the Mag 7. Microsoft goes up with software. Meta goes up a couple bucks. Amazon flips green. Nvidia still down. Tesla down. Google down. Apple down. And SpaceX above 150, but obviously still took a very ugly hit from there. Quantum is selectively moving up. D-Wave is up. IONQ is up. Rigetti is up. Again, Trump announced more quantum investments yesterday. IBM was, I think, the biggest beneficiary of that. IBM up 1.72%, but IBM, it's been a pretty bad year for them as they have been seen as a software company. Again, we will have Technical Tuesday on the market close, and we will get Jason's thoughts on how he's thinking of the technical. SanDisk down 12%, along with Micron right here. Marvell at 280, Broadcom at 382. I did buy some Broadcom yesterday. I bought Broadcom, Shopify, Palantir, and what was the fourth one? Broadcom, Palantir, Shopify, and I'm forgetting the fourth one. Amazon. So those were the four that I bought yesterday. Amazon at 234.68, Broadcom 394.60, Shopify 107.79, Palantir 119.50. Broadcom, I'd be waiting for 330 to really get excited. But then again, I also think that's super greedy, expecting it to actually go down to the 330s. That would be like legit. We're selling off. And I don't know, is today the beginning of that, or is this just going to get bought up like the other dips we've had over the past couple weeks? Nebius right there, 267, down 5.9%. SoFi still back above 17. When are you flying to Singapore? I am flying tomorrow to Singapore. So I will not be here to cover Micron earnings. I will be on the flight. And so I will try to see what happens with Micron while I'm on the flight. But that's going to be a big one. And that's going to be a very important one. I honestly think that's going to determine the trajectory of this AI trade. Even if it's a short-term sell-off, I think we get a short-term sell-off across the entire AI trade. But once again, if Micron goes to 800, I think people are buying that stock. Like if it really takes an ugly dip, I think there will be buyers. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how the market interprets any of their numbers, if they think it's priced in and if they think the trajectory of that growth is really going to be as long as they think it can be. Rocket Lab trying to get back to 100. CoreWeave 104.23. 104.23. Amit, are you considering a Netflix position? We talked about the bear case yesterday, but if you look at the chart, this thing is the cheapest it has been and the ugliest it's been in the past 5 years. And it is still a high quality company. So I would love to see 65 to really get excited. Then again, is there that much of a difference between 65 and 73? So I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet, but I keep saying this. As much as I think there are some real concerns with their ability to generate content pipelines, and that Meta trades at a cheaper premium than Netflix, and I think Meta's a better business. Same thing with Amazon. It is a phenomenal company, and I just don't know if phenomenal companies, stay 50% down forever. So I don't think anyone nibbling right here is going to be too upset in 5 years. SpaceX 150, as that's down 2.89% as well. What do you think of CoreWeave? CoreWeave is once again getting hit as the Momentum NeoCloud trade gets hit. I think part of the reason the NeoClouds are also down is the SpaceX deal that we saw yesterday. So SpaceX signed a $6.3 billion deal with a open source model startup, which is called Reflection. I don't think SpaceX getting those deals is bad for Nebius and CoreWeave. If anything, I think it proves the market thesis around the NeoClouds. However, you did have some analysts come out that are saying, if SpaceX keeps getting a lot of these bigger deals, CoreWeave and Nebius are not really competing for them. Now they're competing for other deals, but that could be interpreted as theoretically bearish. I really don't think that argument is that strong. But if the perception of that is what it is, then obviously those names are potentially going to take a hit. CoreWeave right there, 105. CoreWeave actually fell to 105 yesterday and then went all the way back up to 12. So this is a pivot point for the stock where it could have a reversal if the broader market reverses. The Q's right there down 2.84%. As those continue to be down. Microsoft, again, yes, it is green. Let's look at the stock draft. I would imagine I am probably in like 4th place. I am dead last as of now. Matt with the SpaceX short. Wow, we're all red. Okay, so we're all red. No one's up. But the worst of the red is Matt. Tanner's down 2, Steve's down 3, Jason's down 4, Chris is down 4, I'm down 5. So that is what we got with the stock draft right now as momentum. To the upside, it's fun. To the downside, it's also funny. Not fun, but funny. SpaceX, are we still holding 150? Wow, okay, there it goes, 147. So I was staring at the SpaceX chart yesterday. It was holding 165 for almost 3 hours before it finally gave out at around 315. And then as soon as it gave out, 150 came pretty quickly after 165. And then below 150, here we are, 148. So now the question is 135. Are we going down to 135? And I don't know. I don't know if that is going to be the easy route to see if that plays out. Amazon right there, 299.30. Or sorry, not Amazon, Apple. As that also slightly goes down. Do you think Tom Lee's correct about his prediction? Well, remember, Tom Lee is calling for a bear market. So you would imagine that's 15 to 20% down. S&P's down, 1%, 1.2%. 15 to 20% down, folks, that puts us back at like 630 on the S&P, 650. I mean, if you really want to go 15%, that's going to be below 600. It's looking more like 570. If that were to happen, it would be the most aggressive sell-off that we have in a very long time. And it really would be the most aggressive sell-off since the tariff drawdown, but the tariff drawdown lasted like a couple of days, right? So really, it would be going back to 2022. And if that happens, his argument is you buy the dip because it reverses. I think if that were to happen, it would be one of the best dip opportunities, but it would be incredibly painful. And it's hard for me to see us going that low. I mean, could we go below 7,000 on the other? Sure, that could definitely happen. I mean, but that's also something we were kind of close to a couple of weeks ago. Getting below 6,000 or in the mid 6,000s, I mean, those are March 30th prices. March 30th was the perennial bottom for the market this year on the Iran conflict. Micron still down and falling 12%. So 15, 20% drawdown on the S&P, we're talking about 50%, 40%, 60% on many of these high beta names. Yeah, that would be ugly. To be honest, it would be an incredible opportunity if we get it. I just don't know if we can be greedy. Now, on a red day, it seems like, oh, anything's possible. It can keep falling down. Just like on a green day, it's like, oh, anything's possible. It'll keep going up. But I think it's going to be harder to make the case that it's going to be that bad. Again, people are ready to buy the dip. Even Nebius could barely, look at this, 272. Could barely be at 250 before people stepped in. Like, just there's a lot of people ready with their bids. Like, you need intense selling day after day to get hands to get shaken out, especially retail hands of many of these names that have created immense amounts of wealth for a lot of people. The one good thing about retail, which is also the one bad thing about retail, is retail tends not to sell. Hedge funds sell all the time, institutions sell all the time, but retail, they tend to have a thesis and hold on to that thesis, which is why retail, quite frankly, outperforms a lot of the time. Because if you pick the right horse and you just hold it, you're likely going to outperform. But that also means if you don't sell and the entire market's selling off, you're left holding the bag until it doesn't become a bag anymore. The question for everyone that's wondering is, like, do these bags end up being held by retail in a meaningful way to the point where they're seen as bag holders? And with SpaceX, yeah, I think that's kind of already happened. But with like a lot of these other really important companies in the AI trade, I don't know if that's going to be how it fully plays out. Yeah, tax implication. I mean, there's plenty of reasons why retail doesn't sell. Now, when I say retail doesn't sell, I don't mean retail never sells. Obviously, retail takes profits. But net, the Koreans, they're holding on to their SK Hynix, dude. And that could be the downfall of the momentum, but it could also be part of what controls the momentum, because if you're going to keep holding on to the shares and there's more demand chasing supply, then those shares have to go higher. SpaceX, though, really did feel like it used retail for exit liquidity. And I don't know, man. I think there were too many people taking victory laps when SpaceX was crossing 230, thinking this was a successful IPO. It was a successful IPO because it didn't lose 135, but a $1 trillion move in 2 days didn't feel like it was successful. It felt like it was idiotic more than anything. And when does this thing get back to 230 now? I mean, that's a big drop. It's $80. 80 times 13. That's a lot of market cap. You're talking about many, many hundreds of billions to get back up to those levels with a float that is being diluted every month as more and more shares finally get unlocked. The idea that it just gets back there, which means the people that bought at 200, right? Do they get to break even anytime soon? It's like, I don't know. And if that doesn't happen, then Elon executed a fantastic and phenomenal retail exit liquidity event. Now, from Elon's perspective, he will say, look, if you're a long-term investor, if you bought it at 200, give it 10 years, it'll be above 200. So he doesn't have to worry about it. But if you kind of needed the money, you might not have time for it to get back above 200, or just the pure opportunity cost of putting it in something else versus being stuck at 200 in SpaceX is what I think might piss off a lot of retail, which might cause them to just sell. And that would create even more pressure. Reddit right there, that's down 1% as well. I think we just got PMI. Is PMI good? PMI 55.7 versus 54.6. That is good. Market's not reacting too much to it, but those numbers aren't horrible.
We've had several plus months where that is the comp, as we see manufacturing in many ways, some anecdotal, continuing to firm up. On the service side, also a beat, 51.3. 51.3 would be the best since February's 51.7. And finally, on the composite, 52.2, also better than expectations. 52.2 would be the best since January of this year, so the second highest of the year. And not only are all three better than expectations, Carl, they are also sequentially higher than our last look, our final read for May. So we are looking at yields coming down, oil coming down, dollar to 13-month high. And
so the market actually liked that. S&P getting a string of green candles right there. Look at that, 732 to 736. That's a triple beat across services, manufacturing, and global composite PMI. Apple getting back above 300. Maybe that's the good news you need. Let's see if that momentum can hold. 736 right there. I mean, PMI usually is not the biggest market mover, but on a day where we're so red, any piece of good news might be helping. NVIDIA back above 203. Micron still down, dude. Micron 11% down. This has been down 11% basically the entire day. It's only up $20 from the lows of the day. So you have a little green candle there, but not something substantial. DRAM still down 12%. ASTS, that is up. That goes green. Rocket Lab, that almost goes green. And Nebius is unbelievably resilient. I mean, again, this is part of the reason every time these dips get ugly, there are plenty of buyers ready to step in, especially buyers that feel like they've missed the run, because then those dips just like are used as opportunities to at least DCA at a much cheaper price. And maybe that's what we're seeing right here. CoreWeave trying to get a green candle. It would be really funny if the semi names went green and all the software names went red, if that's how the day turned out. Are the software names still somewhat green? The software names, semis are still red across the board, as you can see right there. And they're red pretty aggressively. Lam Research down 10, Dell down 4, ARM down 7, Marvell down 8, Qualcomm down 9, TSM down 5, ASML down 7, Broadcom down 2, SMCI down 6, NVIDIA and AMD both down 2 and 6. The software names are still relatively green, even though they're losing a lot of their pump. Yeah, Palantir back below 120. What do you think about Path? Is it cheap? Path has been stuck in this range for a long time. I just think the earnings growth has not been that substantial for Path compared to the other software names. Having said that, it's a very small company, $5 billion, but the small market cap semiconductor names have done really well because they're small and there's tailwinds and there's momentum. The small software names, outside of a few of them, like InnoData, have not done as well unless there's like massive earnings growth, which is what InnoData showed a month ago. So I don't know. They've got to grow substantially to even be respected as a software name. S&P, let's see if we can get below 1% red. Very close to 737. Let's see. Amit, what do you think is a reasonable entry price for SpaceX considering its valuation? Okay, put in the chat. What do people think? What is a reasonable entry price? Well, look, the real number is well below the IPO price if we're talking about reasonable. But if you put an Elon premium on that and still try to get reasonable, I don't know, maybe 120-ish is where you nibble. Maybe here is a reasonable price if the Elon premium continues to be strong. But I think if you have to ask what's a reasonable entry price, you're already struggling with being able to sleep at night holding this thing because you just don't know, especially since the float has not really been unlocked yet, how bad it could become. So maybe you just sit it out. There's plenty of other companies that are out there with great fundamentals. And SpaceX will be around for a long time, but that'll offer chances at a better risk reward. NVIDIA right there, 203. Most of you guys saying 75 to 80. Yeah, I mean, it would have to get below 100 to get really, really excited about it. 65, 50. See, the thing is, again, that's like asking for Tesla at like, I don't know, 200 right now. That's just not going to happen. There's too much momentum and people that love the story of Tesla, which is the same thing for SpaceX. But there's also a lot of people that want to sell, and they are just waiting for their opportunity. So Oracle still down 1.4. Zeta, 1945, holding on. SanDisk down 12. ARM down 6. Nebius 280, that is getting ready to potentially flip green. And Hood from 98 to 104, that is also trying to once again flip green. So we talked about in the pre-market, the red ends up being fake a lot of the time if there's plenty of people ready to just DCA into the dip, especially if they've missed a lot of these names. And I think there's an overwhelming amount of people that are there. Now, for this to be a dead cat bounce, this very small bounce that we're seeing, we would need a pretty sharp reversal. And if we get it, probably would happen around 10:30, 11. And if that does happen, it would remind me of not the Friday the jobs report came out, but this is the Tuesday of a week and a half ago, when we got up to 740, then fell to 730, then went back to 740, then fell all the way to 725. Like, if that's what is on the cards, then that could be a similar way it plays out. But that was also following up a really bad Monday. This is following up a South Korean market drawdown, which, again, are the U.S. markets really going to go down that much because of South Korea? I'm not sure. AMD, that's still down 5%, even though it's reversing. HIMS goes green. HIMS goes green, as that is up on the day. Micron earnings is tomorrow. That is correct. Okay, there's a real green candle now in Micron. It was down 12. Now it's down 9. It's got a lot of work to do to recover, but it's going in the right direction. You're seeing that also with NVIDIA, trying to go in the right direction. Western Digital, Seagate, and SanDisk, they're still down a lot, but they are trying. Intel, 140 down to 130, 135 as well. Lots of Korean investors are in U.S. stocks as well. Well, that's also part of the reason of the momentum proliferation is that there are plenty of South Koreans that take out leverage to buy U.S. stocks. And, if they're levered up and they have margin issues, that affects U.S. stocks to an extent. But again, the market is just, like, there are so many trillions of dollars that are out there that want to get allocation. into the US markets, that if the South Koreans have a bad couple of days, bad couple of weeks, I think that just creates opportunities for a lot of other investors that have missed certain names to get their allocation. And I think we've seen that many, many times. On top of that, the Japanese yen went higher today. That could also be part of the reason why markets are struggling a little bit, that yen carry trade, which is not as aggressive as it was a couple years ago because a lot of the pain of it has been priced in. The Japanese rate hikes already happened 2 weeks ago. USD over JPY is at 161, but it does create some uncertainty around how aggressive the Japanese quantitative tightening cycle is going to be on the markets as well. Tesla 388, as that is also down 4%. Are casinos banned in North Korea? Honestly, that's a good question. Let's ask Gemini right now. Are casinos banned in North Korea? I don't think North Korea has a gambling culture like South Korea does. Gambling is prohibited for North Korean citizens. 2 casinos exist in North Korea for the Chinese tourist market. So it is banned for citizens of North Korea, but they do have 2 casinos available for Chinese tourism that enters the country. Nebius right there, 280. Wow, is Fear and Greed actually at 26? Yeah, dude, this dip's going to be bought. Guys, this dip is going to be bought. It's going to be bought. I mean, look, the last time we saw Fear and Greed even touch extreme fear was March, and we were down a lot more than we are down right here. But the past 4 times we've had, I think it was like 38 on fear, and to neutral, we ended up getting this bit bought up. So I don't know if we're going to extreme fear. If we do, we're going to need a catalyst, and South Korea can't be enough of the catalyst. It can't be enough of the reason. Like an Iran war is what really took us down last time. A crypto glitch is what really took us down last time. A hot jobs report 2 Fridays ago was not going to be the reason we stayed down. And I really am skeptical that the South Korean markets is what takes us down as well. Microsoft, that goes green. CoreWeave, only down 3% as well. RXT, there you go. Rackspace, getting a nice little bid right there. On a day like this, Rackspace should not be going up, which once again makes me think the red is a bit more fake than not, as you're seeing some of the small caps get a lot more love. Marvell, what do we got? 285. That's down 7. ASTS back up to 77. This is, dude, every single time the Bears think they've got something. Look at this. Nebius goes green. There you go. 284. 255 to 284 in what? Less than 30 freaking minutes. It's absolutely incredible. Micron's still struggling. It's trying. Again, it could be a little bit of a dead cat. It could be a little fake. We're going to need a couple more hours to see, but it looks like momentum is there. Walmart, that's up 1.7 as well. Rocket Lab just went green. Rocket Lab 1 hundo. I think, Rocket Lab consolidated at 70 for a long time. It would not be crazy to see it consolidate again at these levels before the next move up. But not losing 100 would be nice. Broadcom, are we almost green? Broadcom, very close, folks. Less than 1% away. It is. It's an incredible time to be covering these markets. They're so unbelievably resilient. And, that's why retail continues to win, because retail has been trained to buy the dip. So when you see really, really ugly red days, like 5 to 7% down scares a lot of people. But if you've been a retail investor for a while, a lot of times your spidey senses go off and say, okay, I'm going to buy something here. Which is what I think a lot of us did yesterday. A bunch of people probably did already to start this morning. Palantir trying to flip green now, 120.55. SanDisk right back to 2,000. Even ARM was down 10. Now it's barely down 5. Salesforce going green. Keel 604 to 662. That's a pretty big move on a stock like that, almost flipping green. I mean, just so many opportunities that flip on a moment's notice. Oscar, as that's trying to go for 30 as well. Rocklab, CoreWeave, and Nebius, Astera Labs, and Teradyne, correct. They have entered into the NASDAQ yesterday. So those funds have bought. You'll probably see some more additional buying. I mean, dude, part of the reason we could have maybe got this dip is just markets wanted some of these names to be a bit cheaper going into the inclusion. SpaceX in particular, the Cursor founders would love SpaceX to keep going down because, they get shares of SpaceX. So the cheaper SpaceX is, the more shares they get once they dilute, which I think is going to be happening in the next couple of days, if not next week, early next week. And then we're going to see how the market thinks about that as well. Got a new headline right here. A record 1 in 3 Gen Z and young millennials were still living with their parents in 2025, more than during the pandemic, despite most having a job. It's mostly working adults, not unemployed people. About 70% of 25 to 34-year-olds living at home are employed. Housing is the biggest pressure point. The median home price hit $430,000. Average rent is $1,600 a month. Young workers are being squeezed by higher everyday costs and slower income growth. There's actually a few headlines that came out yesterday talking about the same exact issue. And I mean, look, it's tough to buy a house in this market environment, especially as someone who's young. Lennar, is that going green? Lennar flipping green as well. All right, so you're seeing a little bit of pressure get resolved on the 10-year. Yeah, look at that. We're below 4.5. This is actually a very good sign to maybe see markets finish green on the day. But that is helping some of the home building stocks right here, even though housing continues to be expensive. Dude, look at this. Nebius 290. Broadcom, I think, did the flip. Did we? Broadcom very close to where it was yesterday, 394. Micron 1100. The Bears have just got to be annoyed every time that itty bitty red it moves on. Average house is $2 million in Ocean County, California. I have a friend who's trying to buy a house in the Bay Area, and he sent me the house he put in a bid for $2 million, and it was just like, this shit does not look like it's $2 million. It's like, this shit looks like it's worth $400,000. But it's the Bay Area. It's San Francisco. It's like, it's going to be expensive. I mean, it makes sense. It feels like that is also becoming a broader trend to live with your parents, until you have a bit more financial flexibility. But then the other trend is just people don't want to buy houses anymore. At least millennials are not as interested in that, especially Gen Z. AMD 524, NVIDIA not really breaking above 203, even though it's trying. Palantir just got hit from 120.70 down to 120.5. It feels like that in Miami too, but the problem is the golden handcuff. Yeah, I'm sure it's like that in New York if you're like buying a property. But again, the only reason you would buy a property is because you love to live in that location, not because it's like financially the smartest idea. Meta, are we trying to go for 570? Oh, part of the reason Netflix was down yesterday, I didn't even make the connection until last night, is Meta's push into IGTV. What do you call it? IGTV episodic content. And I think that was also some of the pressure on Netflix yesterday, that Instagram is getting ready to like do storytelling premiere content, which, to be honest, I don't know anyone who watches like long form content on Instagram. That's just not the place. I mean, like the most is a couple minutes. If I'm going to watch something for an hour, I'm probably going to go to HBO Max, Netflix, Paramount, something like that. So I get why Instagram is doing it, but I wonder, how much adoption people have to really watch that stuff on the platform. Habeas, there you go. 290 is that flip screen. This one has a date with 300. They've not let us see it every single time it gets up there. Maybe today is that day. Bank of America raises global semiconductor industry TAM forecast to 2.7 trillion versus prior forecast of 2.3 trillion. You know, the Bank of America semiconductor guys are crushing it on their analysis. The Bank of America macro guys are just a bit confusing to make sense of. Like, I don't know, 3 hikes, really? 3 hikes? Like, they're not the Fed. They can see data every single day. They don't have to put in their decision before something happens. So it's just a bit confusing to see their analysis on it. Let's get some more coverage on some of the drawdown we've saw this morning.
On the S&P 500, and just wanted to give you a snapshot of what's happened with earnings expectations in this very hot sector. So at the beginning of the year, going into the year, semiconductors were thought to grow earnings 66%. Today, the expectations for earnings growth this year is 127% for this group. And then you see it trickle down from there. The tech, hardware, and storage, you know, the Dells and the super micros, 39% earnings growth this year expected. And that's more than double what we thought just going into the year. Obviously, software, it's been a story the opposite direction. And so same with IT services, the Accentures of the world. But that is a defense. And they say, Barclays says, that earnings estimates for tech over the near term are not overly heroic. So if you want to defend, you know, what's happening with the price action, you look at a chart like that, guys. But I guess, David, the question is how much is factored in, you know, and where does that demand level off, I guess? The supply is there.
Yeah, I mean, there's no diminution that we can really identify in a fulsome, in a real way. That said, these concerns are going to continue to potentially bubble up around. I don't know what it'll be next, around whatever may be concerning. And you know, but then you get to valuation, Sarah, and you've talked about this obviously many times. And you can look at some of the biggest companies in the world that are trading at multiples that are not even as high as the market multiple.
Right. You can look at NVIDIA for one, for that, because and what I'm showing you is that the earnings expectations are so high, which is directly to your point that the multiples, you know, are not crazy, even though we've seen this tremendous price run up. Full year forward 1 year PE on NVIDIA right now is 23.
Yeah, 23 times.
23 times earnings.
Although to be fair, chip names often never get to market multiples.
That's a very good point. I mean, I don't know what Micron's multiple is now. I know it's higher than it has been, but it's still obviously well below the market. That said, the thing does have a $1.2 trillion market value, which is stunning, even with the stock down 9% today. We are going to be hearing from Micron tomorrow
on earnings.
And it is important to note that stock did have weakness. Of course, it made it up very quickly, but it did have weakness following its last earnings report, despite it being incredibly strong.
It did fall to the 300s last time on earnings, which was really aggressive because it was trading at like 1.5 times forward earnings. Then obviously it's, you know, had a massive run since then. Micron's still down about 10% of the day. Palantir loses 120, so it's not able to get above that 120 level. But I wonder if the same happens again. Micron, I think the equivalent this time would be falling to 800, and then it would, you know, have that rebound. But what exactly would go into the print for it to fall that aggressively again before it rebounds? Everything fell after Micron earnings, to be fair. Yeah, that's also true, because that was also wasn't that in the midst of the Iran war, the Micron earnings? Was that in April or? Yeah, that was GTC. That I remember that was during GTC. So yeah, that was that actually, honestly, part of the reason it probably fell was just because Trump, I don't know if he literally tweeted something that day, but the sentiment was so bad across the entire market that entire month that, you know, none of the earnings were respected that well. So, you know, honestly, the sell-off could have been more so bad macro, whereas this time you've got relatively good macro. Look at CoreWeave, about to break even, 109.90. 109.90. Let's see. What does a dead cat bounce look like? It looks like what we're seeing right now, but for it to legit be a dead cat, you would have to, you know, see this flip which we're seeing a couple things flip. Rocket Lab lost 101. Tesla losing 390 again, but as of now, it seems less like a dead cat, more like Nvidia's got to go back to 200 from 203 for everything else to follow it to the downside. And it looks like, it'll at least hold a couple dollars above 200. Nvidia really, once it finds its range for the day, it stays in that range. It's like a $3 to $4 range. It really does not move anymore. Like, it'll have an initial move in the first 30 minutes, and then it'll be stuck for the whole day within a couple bucks, even if it's a green day. And so a lot of the volatility on Nvidia has started to come out. Amazon 236. That goes green. The Googs also very close to going green, as the S&P, oh my, 739 up from 732, 740. I think would psychologically be very exciting for the bulls right here. Down less than 1% now. Can you imagine, guys? We end the day green. We just straight up end the day green. U.S. has issued Cuba-related sanctions. Okay. I think this is Trump's next adventure. Potentially. Cuba sanctions. Also, the Supreme Court, a 6-3 Supreme Court expanded the pool of potential defendants who can be sued by the U.S. victims seeking damages for property seized by the Cuban government, holding government-owned entities are not immune from claims. The liberals were the 3 that went against on that decision. If we actually have a bunch of stuff go down in Cuba, I don't know if the markets would care as much as they cared about Iran. But, it obviously would create a lot more volatility writ large. Although we also already have a ton of different sanctions on Cuba. S&P right there is 738.50. As that's trying to go green. Has anyone here ever been to Cuba? I have never been to Cuba. Chipotle is pumping. Is it? Chipotle? Wow, Chipotle. Getting a nice little pump right here. Nebius, 293. Palantir about to lose 119. Are the software names actually going red? Palantir just loses it. ServiceNow holding. Salesforce kind of holding. This might be Palantir specific. Yeah, I think it's a little more Palantir specific. If we see Microsoft fall, then maybe it's not Microsoft. No, this is Palantir. Can't blame Microsoft and Palantir here together. This is Palantir getting sold off right there. 1.8. Wow, that's an ugly candle. 120 to 118.70 as the market's also recovering here. That's a little ugly. Little ugly. The Zeta partnership, again, a lot more bullish for Zeta than Palantir, just because Zeta is a smaller company. But Zeta giving back the 20s as it was 1975. Wow, decent chunk of you have been to Cuba. 13 years ago. I've been there. It's crazy. I've been to Cuba. Great people. No, I've never been. I've heard stories, but I've never been. Ahmed, how can you use writ large correctly, but you can't pronounce mortgage? I don't know why you guys think I pronounce mortgage the wrong way. Like, if I was saying, oh, I have a 3% mortgage, everyone would know what I'm saying. It doesn't sound obscure or weird. You might think it does, but like the general tone of the dialect would result in someone saying, oh, they're talking about mortgage on their house. Even if it sounds like more cage. You don't pronounce the T? Yeah, but do you need to pronounce the T? Like, I feel like I'm putting more emphasis to say mortgage versus mortgage. There's a little bit of a tuh sound there. It's not as aggressive as it probably should be. Microsoft 374. But still. Someone just sold $25 million of puts on SpaceX, 155 strike. So that's a bullish option flow. 8/21, August 21st. So they're betting it'll be above 155 by August 21st. Also, someone just bought Meta calls, 570 strike, September 26. $8 million worth of that on Meta, which is basically at the money, which is what we are seeing. 567 right there on Meta right now. Bro pronounces mortgage with a capital T. How does Google say it? How to say mortgage? Let's see.
Mortgage.
Bro, Google doesn't even say the T.
Mortgage.
Okay, so everyone who said I'm not saying the T, legit, you're all wrong.
Mortgage.
Mortgage. That's how Google says it. So if I'm wrong for mortgage, then you're wrong for mortgage because it's mortgage. So, yeah, I think most of you guys are wrong on that. Why are you guys all acting like you knew the T was silent now? Oh, so now everyone knew the T was silent. Now everyone knew the T was never supposed to be said. First, admit you're not saying the T. Now, oh no, obviously the T is silent. Like, what do you guys like? Does your life revolve around like gaslighting me? Is that really what we're doing here? Trump just now, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. It's simple. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. That's not costing much at all. That's very cheap compared to what we're doing. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Iran will never be able to use a nuclear weapon. And if you don't do it, then you will have a nuclear weapon, and then you'll see real money. He kind of repeated himself like 7 times in a row, but Trump saying Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. Nabius, she's not stopping. 294. The problem is you say the K. Yeah, but then the problem is you guys say it's a T, and then you guys say, oh, we all knew you weren't supposed to say the T. I'm just saying. I'd rather say it with the K. My IQ dropped hearing that. Oh my gosh. Is this T silent in Trump? Trump just put out a poem about nuclear weapons. Yeah, that's kind of what it sounded like. A literal poem. All right, SPY's really going for it here. Bull's got to decide. It's almost 10:30. Are we pushing 740? Or are we not? Because at this point, if we are, I think there's a lot of reversals. CoreWeave about to flip green and join Nebius to the party. NVIDIA, it's about to lose 203. NVIDIA just doesn't do much. Okay, 739 just touched it. And now we got to see if 740 is on the deck. Google as well. Back to 350. Did anyone buy Google yesterday? No, 349 got rejected. Hit 341. Also, put in the chat if you bought the dip at all this morning. I bought yesterday. I have not bought anything today. Yesterday I bought at prices that, I mean, pretty much all of them are a little underwater. Palantir's underwater. Broadcom very close to break even. Amazon, I think I'm up on. Yeah, Amazon I'm up on by $2. And then Shopify is basically flat from where I bought yesterday. But did anyone buy anything this morning? See a few Microns in here. Are people loading this thing up before earnings, dude? I mean, this is going to be a really interesting earnings. It's either the bulls just keep holding or this thing has a pretty ugly move down. See a few keels. I see some ASTSs. See a bunch of Amazons. Qualcomm, this one is still below 210. Yes, still below 210, 206. They have an investor day. Is it today? I think their investor day is very soon. I'm pretty sure it's this week. Tomorrow. It's tomorrow. Okay, so that could be the catalyst for tomorrow. I see a bunch of SoFis. Yeah, dude, SoFi falling below 17 this morning was kind of dumb. I mean, unless you think we're getting the rate hike. If not, I think we'll be all right. SpaceX now basically flat on the day. Zeta still up 7. Intel still down. Zillow down. Where is Netflix? Netflix 72.90. That 3 cents away from going red. Micron down 7. Shopify goes red again. Claude is down. Is it? Are people saying Claude's down? Oh, yeah. Down detector. Wow. Claude and OpenAI are down. Let me see if mine's working. Oh, mine isn't working. Wow, this is crazy. Look at this. Every time I type hi, it just goes back to the screen. Look, hi. Look at that. It goes back to the screen. Hello. Okay, Claude. What about GPT? Is that doing the same thing? Let's see. ChatGPT. Okay, that is actually talking, but Claude is not. Has anyone ever seen that before? You type something and it just goes back to the... I've never seen that before in Claude. Wow. I mean, that's bullish though, right? Unless it's a cyber attack. That's just a lot of people. It's probably everyone asking, should we buy the dip? Dude, the amount of questions that I think we ask these AI bots as if they know everything, because they kind of do, it's hilarious. A video loses 203. Like, I will ask it basic shit, dude. Basic stuff. It's just like the ultimate oracle that knows everything about you. It happens a lot. I mean, I've never seen that happen to me on Claude, but I guess it's having an outage today. Palantir is losing it pretty badly right here. That's a very nasty red candle. Hit 118.30. SPY once again losing it from 739. There's your red candle. Nvidia unfortunately losing 203. Let's see if we can at least hold 202. Microsoft's going though. ServiceNow's going. So a lot of the software names that got hit yesterday, even Robinhood, that's holding on today. CoreWeave once again goes red. AMD still down 5. Micron is only down 7 now. It was down 12. So we got to see. Mate, have you heard of the stock PNG, Kraken Robotics? Oh, we've talked about Kraken for a long time. Look, there's one big risk to Kraken that I think people forget about. How is the stock even done? We haven't looked at it in a while. Kraken Robotics. Year to date, it's up 6%. Okay. The big risk to Kraken is that people are treating this as an Anduril proxy. The problem is, it's a very simple risk that I feel like people forget about. What happens if Anduril vertically integrates and doesn't really need Kraken's services as aggressively as people think they need them? I mean, there is a world in which Anduril has divisions in their company set up to figure out how to extract the value out of their suppliers and then vertically integrate them so that they don't need to be as reliant on their suppliers. Now, I'm saying that's the bear case because if you're only buying Kraken as an Anduril proxy, I mean, if there's an issue with Anduril, if there's an issue with their contract and long-term longevity, then what's the thesis, right? There has to be a lot bigger of an argument to be excited about Kraken long-term than just Anduril. And to be honest, anytime I talk to someone who's in Kraken, to them, they're like, well, I need exposure to Anduril. I'm like, what if Anduril doesn't need exposure to Kraken? And so I think that's maybe why the stock's been stuck for the year. I don't think there's other ways to get exposure to Andro. I don't think you have to go that deep into the supply chain to see it. Especially, people are like Kraken's like a memory company where it's like, Andro can't live without it. It's like, I don't know, dude. I think there's a lot of different ways Andro will navigate their supply chain. So that's been my only issue with Kraken for a while, but there's a vast amount of people that like the thesis there. Rocket Lab 98.65. That's down about 1.7% still. Amit, have you seen the videos about these soccer players going to our grocery stores and being so surprised at the selection we have? I have not. If those are American grocery stores, then yeah, we have a lot of food. And if American grocery stores are crazy, dude. It's part of the reason America's obese. Like, we have a lot. Capitalism and food go very well in the United States. 386 on Broadcom, loses 390. All right, 10:30. We got to see. Are we slamming? Palantir, my goodness. We might be going below 118. Or are we reversing here? Bullish Lilly, yeah. Literally, America's obesity has given so much room for this GLP revolution. Lilly's a freaking $1 trillion company, dude. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And I think one could argue it got to $1 trillion based on this idea of GLPs. I mean, I know there's a lot of other parts of the business, but that has been the major growth driver for Novo, Lilly, for Hims for a while. Hims now 34.11. Okay, are we going red or are we staying flat right here? Marvell lost 290, right back to 285. Tesla losing 390. CoreWeave losing 112. Crude's still falling, dude. This has been the weirdest part of all this. Wow, crude's at 72.50, folks. I mean, when crude was at 95, if we said the market would be down, like the market was at 760 when crude was at 95. The market is now at 738 and crude's at 72. So the correlation on oil going down really has just not necessarily been factored into the indices, which means it was a sell the news. People had it priced in at 760. Hollis says the daily top is likely hit from a technical perspective. So S&P, what did we get to today? 739.63. I think people would be okay if we closed around this range because it's way better than being $1 away from the 720s. But if we walk ourselves back all the way down to 731, that's when things are going to get ugly. As NVIDIA is doing right here, approaching VWAP. VWAP is at 202.45. It's at 202.70. Let's see if NVIDIA loses that. How can inflation still rise after oil drops? Well, the thing is, we need to wait a few months for the prints on CPI and PPI and PCE, at least for the Fed to be more appropriately aligned with inflation expectations. So that's going to take some time. But you're right. Like if energy is 75% of the reason why inflation popped, energy going down, I think people are seeing it in their gas prices. I'm seeing it in Jersey. That would be the reason why inflation is not that big of a deal. Again, we talked about in the morning, memory prices going up and that affecting consumer electronics from a structural perspective could create more inflation. I don't know if that's going to be enough of a reason to do a rate hike. But the Fed switching their mind on 9 out of 18 members calling for a hike, that's probably going to take a few months. Well, maybe not a few months. Maybe, they have a July meeting, so maybe a month. But we need a good CPI, PPI until then. Apollo Private Credit Fund caps redemptions at 5% after requests hit 16.8%. The private credit situation, we had Chris on last week. He talked about it as well. I haven't heard that much of a bear case around private credit, simply because the Iran war ended up being the bigger issue over the past month. But I mean, it is out there. And the fact that they're having to cap redemptions is not the best thing to see. Nonetheless, you are seeing it. Vehicle has met less than a third of withdrawal requests as investor exodus accelerates. This reminds me of The Big Short when Michael Burry took his short on the market and he had a bunch of investors say, hey, we want our money back because we don't believe in this. And because he had liability and his governing documents gave him full control over the capital, he was able to say no. He was like, nope, I'm putting your money in this short and you can't sue me. You can't do shit. Which is essentially what Apollo is doing right now. Obviously, they're not taking a massive short in the market, but they're having full discretion over where that capital is deployed. S&P 738.48. Oh, is it Prime Day? Is it officially Prime Day today? I thought that was in July. Oh, it's today, June 23rd to June 26th. Huh. AirPods are $400 instead of $550. You can get an Oura Ring for $259. Galaxy S26, $699. Okay, I'm not buying any of that stuff, but bullish Amazon as it goes slightly red right here. Dude, I bet my mom knew it was going to be Prime. I bet she freaking had a reminder on her phone that it was going to be Prime Day. The amount of shopping that woman does on Amazon. I mean, it's actually unbelievable, dude. It's unfreaking. It'll be the smallest. I think she just likes getting packages. Like, I think there's some subliminal, like, happiness she gets from getting a package. I think it's a real thing. Ondas. We haven't looked at Ondas in a while. 880. Okay, so the drone stocks, obviously, after that announcement from Trump on funding them, have kind of been in a downtrend. Yeah, Kratos 69 to 51. Ondas 13 to 8. AV 223 to 150. Wow. Okay, so the drone stocks, along with the software names, yeah, pretty much since early June. June 2nd is when a lot of them got a bid. It looks like they're coming down from there. My wife has boxes all over the porch now. Yeah, the fact that you can get it in a couple hours or a couple days, it just makes it so easy to buy from Amazon. The thing is, though, again, that's never been the Amazon thesis, because Amazon barely makes a margin off it. What's been the thesis is they have a lock-in effect because of the customer loyalty, that they're able to upsell you on stuff, and then you have AWS. But they have a 5.3% operating margin on actually selling products, which, you know, is not enough to justify a many trillion-dollar company. But if they lock you in, Prime, video, membership, there's just so many ways they get you to be in that ecosystem forever. And then it becomes something you can just never cancel. Shopify, as that also hits red. What do you think about the Palantir Zeta deal? I haven't looked too much into it. I think it makes sense, and I think it's a good deal. A lot of people have been theorizing it to happen for a long time. Palantir's ontology in the context of Zeta's Athena platform should be able to provide more operational intelligence, especially in the context of marketing. So I think it's a good deal. It's not something that's going to re-rate Palantir. It's definitely something that is going to get people more excited about Zeta, which is why that stock's up. But it's also a partnership that I think a lot of people expected would eventually happen. I have 1 hour delivery now for a fee. They have 30 minutes delivery. I've never had 30 minutes delivery. That's crazy. I think this is just all a shakeout a month or so before earnings scares you into selling so it can be bought up into earnings, then dump back on retail. Well, that's been the story every single time going into earnings. Like, even before Q1 earnings, we had a pretty ugly dump. This was like, what, April 27th-ish, going into April 29th when big tech. This was JPow's last FOMC day. And then on earnings, we got a disgusting dump on earnings. The only one that pumped that day was Google. Well, Amazon also got a little bit of a pump, but Meta and Microsoft just got demolished. And then, you know, now Amazon's 2 months later lost all of its pump as well. But, oh, by the way, speaking of Amazon, at this price, Amazon is officially trading at its lowest multiple in history. So this is the lowest price to earnings you've ever been able to buy Amazon. 28 times. It was trading at 146 times in July of 2023. As you can see, the growth has been strong enough to get the multiple to come down, and the stock has been relatively stagnant since then. So hard to say it's not cheap. Okay, what other headlines do we have? Claude looks like it's still down. Do we have any Iran updates outside of what Trump said about a nuclear weapon? Don't see anything there. Moderna, yes, has been making a massive move. That's up another 6% today. It's up 100% for the year. There's a few different catalysts that some of these names have been rallying on. That hantavirus thing is not as big of the catalyst, as people don't discuss it as much anymore. Same thing with Ebola, but definitely created enough fear to get the market thinking a bit. CoreWeave, that just flipped green. 111, there you go. Micron's still getting hit, dude. Every time it makes a little bit of progress. 1125 got rejected. Now you're right back down to 11. Zeta back at 20. But if S&P gets to 740, I think Micron probably comes back. Amit, how many people here trade full-time versus how many people have a job? Put in the chat if you trade full-time. I think it's very few. I think most people, you know, they take some trades. Obviously, they invest in stocks. They maybe sell options, but full-time trading, I think it's very few amount of people. I mean, even me, I don't full-time trade. Okay, let's do a poll. I'm going to guess it's like 10 to 15%. 10 to 15%. Now, the reason people are here every day, even if they don't trade full time, is because obviously people still keep up with the markets, right? 53% of you, by the way, said the market reverses from the highs. Okay, do you trade? So what do we define as full-time? Full-time, I would say this is your primary job, right? This is how you make your living. Like, you have to navigate the equity markets to make a living. Not that, you know, your portfolio helps your lifestyle, but like you literally, your rent, your food, your family, all of that is paid off via the portfolio. I think that's how you would justify trading full-time. S&P once again. Are we going back below 738? Still well above VWAP right here. Same with NVIDIA. It took a bounce right off 202, now at 203. But then again, it was at 203.45. Now right back down to 202.95. I mean, it's stuck there. Wow, a lot higher than I thought. 35.65. Okay, so we do have a decent amount of people here that trade full time. So why does everyone hate trading then? Whenever you say the word trading, people get so upset. It's like, you need to be a long-term investor, not a trader. A decent chunk of you trade. And again, a trade could be so many things. You could be selling puts. You could be day trading. You could be swing trading. You could be buying opportunistically but selling within a short time frame, which I think is more people than not. Even if you say you're a long-term investor, I think more people than not are trading. Wow, Micron back down to 10%. SPY loses 738. All right, red again we go. Red again we go. This explains why the market goes up and down. Yeah, probably. Nebius is falling, is it? We were at 294. We're right back down to 283. Dude, Nebius is about to go red on the day. Goodness. Yeah, I think until we get those Micron earnings, folks, we're not going to know where this market's going. Netflix back to 73, Zeta back below 20, and Palantir just above 119. My wife and I travel most of the year and own 3 properties in the US. We have a travel trailer and Starlink. Most of the time I'm listening to you from my phone and trade on my laptop. That's a pretty cool lifestyle, dude. Traveling the whole year, trading to make a living. You have Starlink connected, and then you have 3 properties in the US. I mean, there's always been that desire, I think, for so many people to just, like, the cool thing about trading is it is one of those jobs you can do anywhere, right? Because literally, as long as you have an internet connection, you can trade. And, theoretically, you get to travel the world and explore, have life experiences while also continue making capital. It's just easier when you already have a larger portfolio because, the larger portfolios can easily compound the trades. Whereas if you have a smaller one, it's a bit tougher. But if you built up a nest egg, being able to travel and trade is definitely something I think a lot of people would be interested in. Google right there, once again, losing some key levels, 347 as that goes red. Same here. I travel and trade Panama in August, then Costa Rica for a few weeks in September. I'm also older than most of your listeners. Yeah. Yeah, look, it's definitely a really cool lifestyle. It's just getting up to have the capital to be able to execute on that lifestyle is the tougher part, which is why, based on the headline we saw in the morning, so many people are still living with their parents. Microsoft completes construction on data center in Wisconsin. Microsoft estimates $4.7 billion in spending for the next 4 years in Wisconsin. Estimate for hyperscaler construction in Wisconsin will take place over the coming 2 years. All right, Wisconsin, you are the beneficiary of a data center that will help people hate Copilot even more. Congratulations. Microsoft, at least getting some love today. 376. You're going to come back different from Singapore. Well, maybe. I've never seen the region. So it would be the thing is though, like, look, even if it's a fun experience, I like being in a routine. I don't think I could travel and trade and do the show for a living. I mean, it's possible as long as I have my laptop, but I also like having a routine, a structure. I'm also not a fan. Dude, I'm not doing a lot of events in the second half of the year. Like, I'm probably going to 0 events outside of AIPCon. I'm tired of traveling. Like, I am so tired of just going somewhere every month. And I don't know, it'd be very nice to just not do that anymore. So yeah, I couldn't handle going to a bunch of different countries and having to deal with the time differences. Like, it's cool for like a week, which is why we're doing Singapore, but it's not something I want to make a lifestyle of. At least not now. Yeah, it's tiring, right? It's freaking tiring. Chad, pretty presumptuous to say you have an AIPCon invite. Dude, I think I'll be posting it tomorrow. I did a podcast with Chad at AIPCon. It was a fun one. It was like 30 minutes. It was a really fun one. I got Chad to open up, get loose, give me the honest truth about what it's like to work at Palantir. So that should be out tomorrow for everybody. But yeah, like Robinhood's event in Houston in September, I'm probably not going to. Like, it's just too much traveling, bro. I want to cut back on it and kind of really develop a better routine at home. NVIDIA right there, 202.80, once again below 203. Everything's still red. There was that Tesla FSD investigation article that came out yesterday. Maybe that's also why this thing was getting hit. There's been so many of those investigations, though, that Tesla was responsible for like a death. So I don't know if that's enough to keep the stock down, but down 4.3% right there as well. You got to get a dog, dude. There was a dog. I've been in the elevator over the past couple of days, and somehow, I think this is the universe once again trying to tell me to get a dog. A dog ends up in the elevator with me, and every time they come up to me, and I start petting it, and it's like it just makes me realize that maybe I really need to seriously think about this dog, bro. Like, and if I'm not traveling that much, I think I should be able to take care of it. But I'm really warming up to the idea of definitely having a dog. I just also don't know, dude, if like I'm gone for like 8 hours during the day. Like I'm in this room streaming. And like, I don't know if you could leave a dog for that long, especially if they're young. Qualcomm potentially going below 200. So we got to see. Old dogs do that. Not every dog does that. I've been in an elevator before with some dogs and they just like stay still. I don't know. Maybe I'm coping, but I don't know. It's so cute. Broadcom loses 385 because that's getting hit. You should know it's 3 years of them being hyperactive before they stop being childish. Yeah, I don't know. It's a big freaking commitment. It's a big commitment, but I would like to have one. Okay, AMD's down 5. You're not seeing too many macro updates come in outside of oil continue to come down. I think this might end up just being a flattish to red day. I mean, I know we're down 1%, but if we don't recover 740, we're probably either staying down or staying here. Wow, we lost 737. Okay, so the wind down continues as you're not seeing bids come in post 1030 right here. Qualcomm losing 200. That's a little interesting. Jason, I think, has Qualcomm in the draft. Hasn't lost 200 yet. Holding on. Let's see. Yeah, it literally has not touched 199 yet. Matt is still in first place on the draft. There he goes, below 200 on Mr. Qualcomm. Chad says you're definitely not a forward deployed content creator. That is correct. I did go from first to last. That is true. So what happens in the draft? It's a long year, but those swings are going to be wild, and all of our portfolios are so high beta that it's going to be up and down in a lot of different directions. You'll probably lose your apartment's deposit after they chew your wall. Yeah, it's like if I want to get a dog and I want to have emotional, like I want to give it emotional support, and I'm just in this room streaming while the dog is stuck outside for hours, I don't think that's a good idea. But then again, maybe they can handle that. So I don't know. We would have to see. Oh, we got the Meta VP of Global Partnerships live. Let's see if she can kind of explain some of the issues with Meta right here and give a little bit of an explanation on how the AI thesis is playing out for them.
What are you finding?
Well, we have a trust problem right now. And because I believe in the promise of this technology, the enormous promise of it, I think we have to fix it. And it requires the AI companies, the tech companies, to open themselves up to more scrutiny than I think they ever have before. And
never mind. She's the former Meta VP. So she used to work at Meta.
What we do at Forum AI is evaluate how AI models, AI products perform on high-stakes topics, whether it's finance, healthcare, geopolitics, politics, especially areas that are subjective and really hard to measure. And those are the areas where I think there's still a lot of work to do. We did a recent study looking at politics ahead of the midterm elections and found in the areas that we looked at, which were factual accuracy, the quality of the sources, and bias, neutrality, there was a 90% failure rate across all the models in either one of these areas. And that's a problem. You're talking about getting information about candidates wrong. Examples like a question about what kind of government does the U.S. have, and then sourcing the answer from Chinese state-run media. This is low-hanging fruit, though, too. It should be easy to fix these challenges. Part of the problem is the AI companies make most of their money from coding, and that's where they're putting their resources and their investment on their internal evaluations, and less so on this kind of information. But it is increasingly becoming critical given.
It's a fair point. When we get into the midterms, I'm sure people are going to be using the models to get information on the political candidates. Qualcomm now really taking a hit right here. Nabius taking a hit as well. NVIDIA still below 203. And the accuracy of the models on, what's been happening with the Iran war over the past few months, I wonder how much that influences, or just like the affordability narrative, I wonder how much that influences how people think of, who they're going to vote for going into the midterms. We haven't talked too much about the midterms, but we probably will over the coming months. And that's going to be a whole nother volatile event that we have to deal with. But who knows, man? I mean, look, it felt like we couldn't go down in October of last year. And then we ended the year, it wasn't fun. I mean, I remember the week before Thanksgiving was ugly. Thanksgiving got a little bit of love. Then we started going back up. And then by the end of this, like December 31st was a down day for the S&P. So is midterm volatility, especially if, certain parts of the political affiliations win that the market doesn't like, does that mean we get some real midterm volatility, even with good earnings growth going into latter half of the year? Robinhood almost flipping green right there, 105.27. And so that's going to even be another thing that we have to think about going into next year. Gas is still crazy expensive in Michigan. Trump lost a lot of support over here. Dude, I saw it at 370 in Jersey. I thought that was pretty appropriate, given it was pushing 450. But every state still is different. Name your dog Winston, dude. The dog's name in the elevator today was Rocco. That's such a cute name, Rocco. I want to name my dog Bubba. I feel like that'd be the perfect name, Bubba. But Rocco was a great name as well. Amid, I'm already preemptively missing you. When are you going to be back? We will be back July 6th, and we'll start, July 7th, really. July 6th, I'll be getting here at like 8 a.m. July 7th, we officially get back to normal. We will still have a market open on Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. So realistically, I'm missing 5 days, 24th, 25th, and then July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd, July 6th. Actually, 7 days. No, 6 days. Yeah, 6 days. But I don't think there's going to be too much crazy market movement in those 6 days. And I'll still be on Twitter. I'll still be posting stuff. Nabby is 276, dude. 295 to 276. Completely trapped. Anyone buying at those levels at the top there. Yeah, Steve will probably be doing the market open, market close on those days as well. So, dude, Bubba is not gay. Why are you guys putting rainbow emojis? Bubba is a cute name. How's that gay? It's a cute name, Bubba. There's nothing like, it's gender neutral. There's no way you can claim that. It's like bubble tea. Bubba is sus. How is Bubba sus? It's a cute name for a gay guy. It's zesty. Dude. People have heard that name before. That is not some crazy name that I came up with. Raghu, thank you for the gifted 5 memberships. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the gifted 5 memberships. Charlie, $200 million buyer for the Micron 115. Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. Those Micron 12, 27, 1500s. Again, these drawdowns just make those options look a lot more attractive. And so you're getting hundreds of millions of dollars of flow into those OTM options going into the end of next year. Ask ChatGPT, is Bubba a cute name for a dog? See? ChatGPT. Bubba's a very cute name. It's a friendly, goofable, lovable vibe. Perfect for a dog that's chunky, happy, loyal, a little silly. It works well for a bulldog, lab, golden, beagle, pit mix, or basically any dog with best buddy energy. Told you guys. The $1 trillion GPUs know what they're talking about. They know what they're talking about. BTC getting wrecked again. Bitcoin, as that continues to fall again. Saylor bought more Bitcoin yesterday. 62,407. Ask if it's gay for a single male to name it. Is it gay for a single guy to name his dog Bubba? I bet you ChatGPT is going to be like, no, it's not. See, there you go. For a single guy, it actually gives off more of a buddy, loyal companion, goofy best friend type of vibe. Now, granted, ChatGPT probably can't get away with saying, yes, it's gay. But still. All right, what else do we got? What else do we have? It's almost 11 right now. Oil's still low. Let's finish up with Gary Cohen, and we'll see what else we've got going on.
Businesses that are driving market and market value is AI and energy, and they're both intertwined with each other.
Okay, there's a lot to dig through on that. Let's start with just where the huge declines are today. Most of them are chip stocks, not necessarily the Alphabets and the Metas, although we did see those stocks under pressure
they may have been yesterday. That might have been yesterday's
move.
move.
We did see them moving
Right.
some of those things. Not 9% declines like we're seeing with some of these stocks today, but you did see, what was it, a 3.5%, 4% move lower for Alphabet and some of the others. Guys, if you can call up the Mag 7, let's take a look at Meta, let's take a look at Alphabet, let's take a look at some of these stocks that are, here we go, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Tesla. So yesterday we saw some pullbacks from these, but not the same magnitude of some of these issues. What I did not realize is if you stripped out AI and stripped out energy, that the market would be down for the year.
Torsten Slok put out a piece on that last week, very interesting to really break down what's driving the market. And look, we're always like this. Last year, every guest sat here and talked about the Mag 7, what the market would look like without the Mag 7.
Yeah.
Maybe the Mag 7's going away. We had FANG before that. We've had BRICS before that. We've had lots of different clarifications of what drives the market. Right now, it is AI energy trade. Without the AI energy trade, the market is sort of floundering.
What you do find, we had Philippe Belafonte.
NVIDIA 201. Lows of the day, folks. S&P officially right back down to 736.80. So you had about 30 minutes of moving up, as you can see right there, from 9:30 basically to 10:25. And now you're seeing the opposite side right there. And he's right. Again, if you take out AI, this market gets ugly. But I also don't think that, wow, CoreWeave, it's getting right back down. I also don't think that's like that's something crazy to say. AI is the market, but we all know that. If you're bullish the S&P at these multiples, you're assuming AI has to. I mean, look, buying the S&P at these multiples historically results in a 10-year yield of negative 2%. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Howard Marks put out that really good essay kind of looking at the historical comparisons of buying the S&P at these levels. The pushback against that argument is that we've never had the type of explosive growth and productivity levels that we've seen over the past 4 years. And if that continues with GDP actually compounding at 4.5%, which is what Trump wants it to do over the next 5 years, buying the S&P at this multiple theoretically should result in returns. It's just historically, it's never resulted on a 10-year basis in anything better than negative 2% because, you can look at the Shiller PE, the Buffett indicator, all of those signals are flashing red for the market. In the face of all that, the dip buyers continue to buy the dip. And I don't know. We're going to have to really see if today is one of those days where we fully reverse this, Qualcomm now well below 200, or if it just ends up being another dip that people buy. Meta gave up all the gains as well. 572 back down to 565. Maybe AI shouldn't be the whole market. Philosophically, I agree with that. The problem is practically, where is the growth coming from in this economy if we do not have the catalyst that has been AI? It's not coming from Nike, right? It's just not coming from McDonald's. And that's the thing. Every bull market needs this foundational catalyst that is so transformative, that has the earnings to justify it, that gets you into a bull market. And 2000, we had the internet. 2008, we had cloud computing and mobile. And now we have AI. But it is scary because, once again, if 50% of GDP growth is this CapEx shit. And by the way, this CapEx stuff, let's listen to this right here, is still heavily funded with debt, which is not bearish because these companies have the ability to pay it back. But the fact that it is, again, it just makes people think how sustainable that growth can continue to be proliferated for.
Wow, $750 billion into this AI build out. Just this year, it's up about 80% from a year ago, and they are depleting cash at record levels. Goldman recently noting CapEx, if you look at it as a percentage of free cash flow, that is at its highest level since the dot-com bubble. The dollar amounts are not necessarily new, but in recent weeks, we've seen more fear around debt in this entire build out. That has been the big headline in recent weeks. SpaceX yesterday turning to the bond market. That was the latest example. Google with one of the largest debt financing rounds in this cycle, I should say. Alphabet, parent company of Google. Oracle also raising debt, is expected to see negative free cash flow this year. And then there is Amazon, widely forecasted to see negative free cash flow, and has laid the groundwork recently to tap credit markets with a shelf offering. So that's essentially pre-approval from the SEC to do that quickly. With this new debt load, the effect of rising rates could start to move upstream to mega cap tech. The group really used to be immune from the bond market thanks to their fortress balance sheets, and this could make them more sensitive to rising rates. If you look at the 10-year, it's just below 4.5 this week. Another topic that's weighing on big tech this week, cheaper AI models. So that is adding to this entire question about if tech companies are just overspending here. Microsoft reportedly now considering offering access to the ultra cheap Chinese model DeepSeek on its platform. Also, in recent weeks, has unveiled a fleet of its own discount AI models. And then finally, one market dynamic is playing out as well. JP Morgan recently noting the Mag 7 stocks have become a source of funding for their clients. That tends to be part of why the names have sold off, at least if you look at this month so far, guys.
Yeah, not to mention
the hyperscalers are levered up, and any break in that narrative on the leverage on their debt, again, you have some concerns there that could obviously create a little bit more panic. S&P now, lowest we've seen in about an hour, 736.60. By the way, I didn't realize Cerebras has earnings today. Cerebras and FedEx have earnings today. I had no idea. So before Technical Tuesday, we'll cover Cerebras and FedEx. You also have KBH, which is a home builder. Where is Cerebras? 214. This thing peaked at 386 on May 29th. Lowest was 196 on June 8th. What do we think? Cerebras, pump or dump? I mean, they're going to have a good earnings. Every company's first public quarter, they tend to juice it up really well. But I wonder if today is a day that's appropriate for them to really report. CoreWeave 107, Tesla 345, SPY 736. Amit, there's allegedly a new Japanese AI model that's better than Fable and Mythos. It's called Sakana. Sakana AI. A Japanese AI system reportedly beat Claude 5 on certain benchmarks. Dude, is that why we're down today? Benchmark charts shared by Sakana show it's an open source model that beat Claude's Fable 5 on software problem solving tasks, as it beat the prior Claude Mythos preview model as well. I don't know, folks. I don't know if that's the reason. Sakana on Monday launched 2 versions, Fugu for coding, chat, and other everyday tasks, and Fugu Ultra for more complex work. The company also claimed that its tests showed their Fugu models outperformed Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro, OpenAI GPT 5.5, and Anthropic's Opus 4.8 in tasks such as automated research, mechanical design, Japanese handwriting analysis, one-shot chess, Rubik's Cube solving, and financial time series predictions. Fugu. I mean, if it actually becomes a threat, I think we'll hear more about it. But I don't know if that's the reason it's, the markets are getting hit this bad. Wow, Nvidia, are we losing 201? We wicked at 200.04. We touched it for a second, then we popped right back up. We lost 201. There we go once again. I don't know, folks. Nvidia below 200 is definitely not going to be fun. Fugu, that's what it's called. Netflix, red. SPY loses 736. Qualcomm loses 200. IONQ down. Rigetti's up. D-Wave's up. AMD still down 5. Micron, we were down 12 at the worst. It's down 10.6 now. And then Meta very close to going red again. It's time to buy Pokemon cards. We got to wrap up stocks. Yeah, I think so. I think so. The Q's down almost 3% right here. We were below 700 on the Q's 2 weeks ago, man. We rebounded all the way back up. Look at this. We went to 685 on June 10th, ran up all the way back to 745, and now we're back at 717. So it's got to make a decision if it wants to go back below 700 or hold on to these levels. Microsoft also taking a red candle from 376. So pretty much everything now is getting a little bit of red. 377 was where it was at 20 minutes ago. Could this just be manipulation before Micron earnings? I don't think that's a crazy thought. That is going to be one of the, I mean, one could argue it's the biggest earnings outside of NVIDIA. The memory trade has controlled a lot of the semi sentiment. We know Micron's going to crush it, but is it priced in enough? SK Hynix down 10% today. If Micron falls another 10%, then South Korea is going to go down immediately, which is going to hurt the United States again. So that tomorrow, really will matter. INFQ, their CEO, if I'm not wrong, was at the event yesterday. The D-Wave guy wasn't there. Rigetti wasn't there. IONQ wasn't there. INFQ CEO was. So this one up 13% kind of makes sense as they're being seen inflection as one of the broader winners. NVIDIA keeps falling 200.80. MicroStrategy as well, 106. That one, we haven't seen below 100 yet this year on. Have we seen it this year, below 100? No, we've never seen below 100. The lowest we got to in March was 104. So now it is basically approaching that level. Yeah, they did get the $10 million investment as well. And again, D-Wave and Rigetti, they got investments a while ago, but they weren't at the event yesterday. So they did pump a month ago when the actual investments were announced. SpaceX, are we green? I mean, it's green, but it's still below 160. Like this thing was, well, relative to itself in the pre-market, it's actually doing pretty good today, to be honest. 159 right there. So that, I would say SpaceX is actually doing the best out of the high beta names. From 147, I didn't even realize it hit below 150 pre-market. That's actually a pretty decent recovery. Rocket Lab is still down for the day, and ASTS still slightly up. ETH getting wrecked, BMNR getting wrecked. Coinbase is down 3%. Hood somehow holding the hundreds here is just unbelievable. I mean, shows the resiliency of it as Bitcoin continues to fall. Bitcoin 62,260. AAOI, there's been a lot of bearish reports I read on this company over the past 2 weeks. I think sentiment has shifted a bit on this. Having said that, optics is in a massive tailwind right now, and this is one of the premier companies, along with Lumentum, Coherent, that's in it. Management's a bit shady on AAOI if you look into their past, but if they execute on the numbers that they're going for, this doesn't have to be seen as a ridiculously over expensive stock. You just have to look out into the future. But that one down 10 right here. Where's Lumentum? Lumentum's down 7 as well. You said Tesla was 345. I ran to my laptop. Did I? I might have made a mistake there. I meant 385. Sorry. 345 would be crazy. What did we get in the March lows on Tesla? 337. Yeah, 345 would be a little bad. But, obviously still a nasty day. Axon's pumping. Axon. Oh, wow, that is pumping. It's kind of weird, dude. Some of these software names holding on. A lot of them holding on. Look at this. Adobe, Cloudflare, Net, CrowdStrike. Palantir kind of on an island today in terms of software getting wrecked. Same with Oracle. A little bit of Datadog. The rest of them, I mean, if we actually end the day with IGV and the software components green with semis red, then that would be quite incredible, because I don't think we've had a day like that all year. All year. Does anyone realize Claude is down right now? Yeah, Claude's been down for the past 2 hours. Let me check if it's still down for me. Yeah. Dude, look at this. Now it doesn't even go to the loading dock anymore. Now it just refreshes. Look at that. Oh, there it goes. After 5 attempts. Let's see. Nope. Right back. Okay, so Claude getting hit right here, as well with everything else. The White House should be talking to Anthropic this week as well. And, that effect on how the market thinks of Claude. Here's Julian Emanuel this morning on Bloomberg.
Julian joins us now for more. Julian, good morning.
Good morning.
Sounds somewhat contrarian after the few days we've had.
Well, first I want to say is, given the sports intro, we should start talking about Messi again, which we were doing prior to the top of the hour.
We'll make some time for that a little bit later.
Okay? Fine. So I liken this to the beginning of the year, when you started to have the accumulated worries around software and the initial concerns around debt, which obviously the debt pile has gotten much larger, which earnings are supporting. And you got this intense negativity around technology stocks. And we felt like we were contrarians coming into the beginning of 2026, sticking with the call. And frankly, we saw the progression into the most hedged position we had ever seen in 30 years at the lows in March. And the market isn't hedged to that degree, to be sure, but the skepticism is there. And frankly, when you think about it, you're just sort of transitioning this wall of worry away from the malign effects of high oil and into the potential concerns around supply and less transparent monetary policy.
So you say the bull case is operational, yet we started the program by pointing out a couple of names. The likes of Microsoft and Meta deep into bear markets now. Can you have 9K on the S&P? Operational, so to speak, without those names participating in any way, shape, or form?
Mathematically, you can't. Okay, and when you look at it, the chip names, have done a great deal of the heavy lifting. You will need a refreshed attitude towards the Mag 7. And we think that comes in time. And if you look at it over the course of this bull market, now almost 3 years old, there have been certain periods of time where essentially earnings and price have, caught up to each other. And we think that's one of these periods in these larger names, and that you will have price start to advance once more.
He made headlines last week because he said, which, dude, can you guys imagine? That would be crazy, bro. 9K. Oh my gosh. These names would be up a lot, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. Is the mic not working? Let me fix it. Hold on 1 second. Is it still bad? You're good now? You cut it for like 5 seconds. Okay. What I was saying is, he said, 9,000 on the S&P for the end of this year, and it's very, very aggressive. But obviously, you would need the Mag 7 to participate. So yeah, to his point, right? Like Meta and Microsoft being stuck like here, you can't have S&P 9,000 without that. But if you're going to buy the S&P, you also have to believe Meta and Microsoft participate pretty substantially. Nvidia 201, it touched 278 or 200.78. It's not losing 200 yet. Tessie still at 385. Are we convinced we're going to see S&P 8,000 end of year? I mean, it's not that far away, but you would imagine Micron's pushing 2,000 a share if we get there. Not saying it's going to be, but it's pushing it. Robinhood's probably back to 130, 140-ish. Rock Lab, I would imagine, same range. Google's got to be pushing 400. Amazon's got to be at least closing in on 280, 290. Because again, the cool thing about the S&P is it's an aggregate of the 500 most important companies. The only reason the S&P can get up is if those 500 companies in aggregate move up as well. And the semis have already concentrated so much of the S&P, which is why we're up as much as we're up year to date. But can SanDisk, Micron, Western Digital, Intel really take the S&P to 8,000 alone? I don't know, dude. I mean, if they do, they're going up all another 30, 40% from here, which in 7 months, I mean, maybe it happens. Nebius is not in the S&P 500, but yeah, if the S&P was at 8,000, Nebius probably is above 300. 274 right there. Let's see if there's any other websites on Down Detector that are being affected. Yeah, still Claude, still OpenAI. AWS, even in the morning, had some issues. Gemini had some issues as well. Snapchat and Spotify had a couple issues. So 2 days in a row, we had some broader issues here. Yes, we will have TT today. We will have TT with Mr. Jason. All right, is that it? Is that what we got for today? I think that's pretty much it. Don't say anything too crazy. Vance and Rubio talk about a U.S., Lebanon, Iran ceasefire monitoring group. Vance and Rubio inform about U.S., Lebanon, Iran ceasefire plan under review, according to the Lebanese presidency. Okay, so maybe there's going to be some progress on making sure that ceasefire stays in place. Robinhood just got a red candle right there, almost below 104. And then Rock Lab, red candle. S&P, oh boy, that all at once that happened. All at once. Market's got to decide, are we going back below 735? Look at that. Literally within 10 seconds. you had that drop. It's because you're a red sweater. It's maroon. It's not red. It's maroon. Lumentum getting hit. Microsoft now getting hit. Microsoft just fell below VWAP. Google as well. 346. Feels like it was a dead cat. I still think we got to see 732-ish. I mean, obviously it topped out at 739, but for it to get ugly today, like ugly like it was last Tuesday, I think we got to lose 732. If not, maybe we teeter-totter around 735 to 738, which is probably the best case scenario, unless we have a full reversal. And so we'll find out by the market close. Why is the market dumping? I just arrived. So the major headline reason is South Korea took a really ugly hit yesterday for a variety of reasons we talked about in the beginning of the show. And the South Korean memory names are affecting the American memory names. The American memory names are affecting the broader semi-trade. The broader semi-trade affects the S&P. And that's why we're red. I do not think is a legitimate enough reason for South Korea's unwind to be enough to really, really hurt us. Short term, maybe, but I think the dip probably gets bought. But it also really depends on if Micron can keep the momentum alive. Micron now down 11%. It recovered a decent chunk of it. It was only down 7 about 45 minutes ago, and now it's right back down to 11%. All right, folks, that is what we got. Wow, Applied Materials. Damn. So what semis are up today? What are this? Dell is up by $1. Nvidia, I don't want to see it lose 200, but man, it looks like it has not a lot of support with these last 50 cents. TSM is down 5. Qualcomm's down 10. Yeah, what semis are up today? All the neoclouds are down. Cypher's red. All the photonics names are down. So this is a pretty big semis unwind. Now, SAS is still pretty green, as you can see on the screen. Outside of Palantir, Datadog, and a few others, most of the SAS names are green, which we haven't seen this in a very long time. SAS green, semis red. But I don't know if that's how it's going to stick for the end of the day. All right, we'll be back on the market close as NVIDIA tries to hold above 200. We'll be here for Technical Tuesday. We will have Cerebras and FedEx earnings. So definitely will be some important earnings for today. Cerebras in the semiconductor space. FedEx for consumer discretionary. And we'll get into TT. Okay, word of the day. I have never heard of this word before, just like yesterday. Palimpsests. Palimpsests? Something that has been altered or overwritten but still bears trace of its earlier form, layers of history visible beneath the surface. The modern economy is palimpsest. New technologies emerge, but echoes of old systems remain underneath. I've never heard of this word before. Let's see what it sounds like. Has anyone heard of this word before? Palimpsest? Can't be as hard as mortgage. Mortgage.
Palimpsest.
Palimpsest. Okay, you got to pronounce the 2 S's. All right. That is your word of the day. Something that has been altered or overwritten, but still bears traces of its earlier forms, layers of history visible beneath the surface. We'll be back on the market close. We got Cerebras, we got FedEx, we got TT. And yeah, we'll keep going from there. Obviously, ugly day, almost recovered, then ended up being ugly again. NVIDIA, keep an eye on that one. I want to see if that breaks 200. It broke 200 2 weeks ago, but it was for like a millisecond. Like it really didn't stay there. If we actually break 200 and develop some momentum to that downside, I wonder how long it's going to take for people to come in. But that's the one I think to pay attention to. NVIDIA 200.50 as the S&P Reversing a lot of that progress. 734. It is pretty freaking close to the pre-market lows. Look at that, dude. Look at the shape of this today. We opened at 733, fell to 732, walked all the way up to 739.60, and now we're walking all the way back down to where we were pre-market. All right, we'll keep discussing it on the market close. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys in a few hours. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.